The self-destruction of a first-order origin returning realm cultivator is indeed powerful, but it couldn't threaten a third-order origin king. So the thin cultivator's act of defiance would at most be able to dirty Lu Baichuan a bit and cause him to lose face. But it was mainly how madly obsessed this thin cultivator was going against him, which annoyed Lu Baichuan. What Lu Baichuan was far more concerned about, though, was the young man who suddenly appeared in front of him. As soon as this young man appeared, his domain had instantly been suppressed, saving the thin Zhang family cultivator. The aura coming from this unknown young man made Lu Baichuan aware that he was no weaker than himself. But since when did the Zhang family have another third-order origin king? Lu Baichuan was puzzled and did not hesitate to open up some distance between them. Yang Kai looked at him faintly, not giving chase and instead reaching out and tapping the thin cultivator's back. The violent power which was rioting inside the thin cultivator's body instantly steadied, and the man himself staggered and nearly fell to the ground. Raising his head, the thin cultivator looked at Yang Kai, who appeared suddenly with a blank face, seemingly in a daze. "Old third, get back here." The fat cultivator was dripping cold sweat as he hurriedly called out to the thin cultivator. Seeing that he did not move though, the fat cultivator rushed over and dragged his companion back. "Who is your excellency?" Lu Baichuan stared at Yang Kai, instinctively feeling that the other party was a tricky opponent, causing his tone to become serious. "You don't seem to be a Zhang family member, right?" Yang Kai smiled and shook his head. "You're right. Then who are you and why are you interfering in this private affair?" Lu Baichuan frowned. Just now, Yang Kai's casual move had made him realize that Yang Kai's strength was not inferior to his own. So he did not want to make an enemy of him if possible and tried to probe Yang Kai's background and relationship with the Zhang family. "For certain reasons, the Zhang family's affairs are now my concern." Yang Kai grinned meaningfully. "What does friend mean? Since the Zhang family's affairs are now your concern, should you not also give a reason? Moreover, this old master is only here to welcome a bride into his family, not to embarrass the Zhang family in any way. Is this friend perhaps misunderstanding something?" Lu Baichuan, cease your meaningless rhetoric. My husband was killed by you inside the 5-colored treasure pagoda. So our hatred is absolutely irreconcilable. At that moment, the middle-aged beauty soared out from the manor, a sword in hand, screaming as she landed beside Yang Kai. Lu Baichuan smiled upon hearing these words and said, "Sister-in-law, this Lu is also deeply saddened by Brother Zhang's death, but it truly has nothing to do with this Lu. How can I explain it to you so that you will believe me? This little brother has brought back the last words of my husband. Yet you still dare to quibble?" The middle-aged beauty pointed to Yang Kai as she grit her teeth and shouted. Lu Baichuan narrowed his eyes and immediately turned his attention to Yang Kai. "So you met Brother Zhang inside the 5-colored treasure pagoda?" When he asked these words, a look of pleasant surprise filled his expression, as if this was extremely good news for him. Yang Kai replied calmly, "Indeed I met Brother Zhang, but why does that make you so happy? Heh. Did you perhaps think of something?" Lu Baichuan's face changed several times before he whispered, "If that's the case, then is that thing with you?" "You guessed right. Yes, that thing is with me. Do you want it?" Yang Kai looked at him lightly. At that moment, a trace of guilt suddenly flashed across the face of the middle-aged woman as she secretly blamed herself for being indiscreet, exposing the secret that Yang Kai had obtained the Dao source fruit. Lu Baichuan and Zhang Gaoxian had entered the 5-colored treasure pagoda together, and had also traveled together inside the pagoda, so it wasn't a surprise if they had found the Dao source fruit together as well. Even if the beautiful woman did not directly reveal that the Dao source fruit was with Yang Kai, with Lu Baichuan's shrewdness, how could he not infer it? "It seems that you killed Brother Zhang because of that thing." Yang Kai looked at Lu Baichuan contemptuously. "Humph, even if it weren't for that, I would still have done so, but that is my Lu and Zhang family's business. Now that it is with you, this Lu has something to say to this friend." "And what might that be?" Yang Kai looked at him with interest. Lu Baichuan's expression turned serious as his lips began to squirm, seemingly sending a message to Yang Kai. In that instant, though, Yang Kai smiled meaningfully as he leapt up into the air. The The moment he did so, a small black snake burst out of the ground silently and bit towards where Yang Kai's leg was a moment ago. Everyone on the scene was taken by surprise when the little black snake appeared from the ground, none of them having detected it before it showed itself. "Friend is truly sinister," Yang Kai said in a condescending tone as he looked down at Lu Baichuan with a sneer. "It seems that Brother Zhang was attacked by you in this way, and then killed by its poison, yes?" As he spoke, Yang Kai flicked his wrist and sent out a golden blood thread that swiftly wrapped up the little black snake. Lu Baichuan hadn't expected Yang Kai to be so alert and able to avoid such a concealed attack. He had used the same move against Zhang Gaoxian inside the five-colored treasure pagoda, and at the time it had worked perfectly. Seeing that his attempt had failed and that he was at a disadvantage, Lu Baichuan hurriedly moved his lips and the black snake immediately tried to retreat underground, like it had received some kind of order. But it was too late. The golden blood thread had already wrapped up the little snake and was rapidly constricting it. Chi. The snake struggled hard, but no matter how it tried, it was unable to escape from the golden blood thread. The golden blood thread continued to tighten, and it was not long before the black snake's skin was cut open and blood began leaking from its body. "Stop!" Lu Baichuan shouted as he summoned out a warhammer artifact and poured his strength into it. This hammer flashed with dark blue sparks before it rapidly shot an arc of lightning out towards Yang Kai. Yang Kai narrowed his eyes as he realized that this warhammer was a high-grade artifact. Not wanting to act rashly, he swiftly dodged to avoid the blow. With a hissing sound, accompanied by a faint crack, the black snake was strangled to death by the golden blood thread and slivered into several pieces. As its corpse fell to the ground, the head continued to struggle about, looking particularly fierce and vicious. But with such an injury, it was destined to die. "My spirit snake!" Lu Baichuan roared in anguish, as if his wife or daughter had been snatched from him, his eyes turning bloodshot as he glared towards Yang Kai, who was still standing up in the air, and roared, "For killing my snake, I'll have your head." Saying so, he poured his strength into the warhammer in his hands recklessly. With a loud crackling noise, lightning arcs swirled around the hammer wildly, and even the surrounding world energy became turbulent. Lu Baichuan lifted his arms and hurled the warhammer out towards Yang Kai with a heaven-destroying force. "Little brother, be careful. That is the Lu family's Thunder Wind Hammer, an Origin King-grade high-rank artifact. Don't try to confront it head-on." The Zhang family's old matriarch shouted from below, as she finally managed to arrive on the scene with the help of Zhang Ruoxi. How could Yang Kai not understand the power of this artifact? The thunder attribute energy which pulsed from it was violent and domineering, so even with his intrepid physique, he did not dare despise it. Waving his hand, Yang Kai sent out dozens of golden blood threads and wove them into a sturdy net to intercept the thunder wind hammer. Hong long long. There was a loud series of bangs as the golden blood thread net was continuously strained and lightning arcs darted about. The scene of the two forces opposing one another was quite a thrilling sight to behold. "Grandma, can this sir win?" Zhang Ruoxi, who was supporting the old woman, looked at Yang Kai and asked. Although she was not very old, she at least understood that the Zhang family's safety was all tied to Yang Kai's ability, so she couldn't help feeling nervous. The old woman didn't answer. After all, she didn't know much about Yang Kai, only that he was a third-order Origin King. However, Lu Baichuan was also a third-order Origin King. Comparing opponents of the same level was always difficult. But looking at the situation right now, Yang Kai seemed calm and relaxed while Lu Baichuan wore a violent expression and was clearly going all out, perhaps because his precious spirit snake had been killed. High in the sky, the golden net condensed from golden blood threads and the thunder wind hammer competed on equal ground. Lu Baichuan suddenly shouted loudly, and as he opened his mouth, he spat out a ray of light which quickly transformed into another artifact. The old woman's expression changed drastically when she saw this artifact and cried out in shock, "Silver Moon Purple Frost Saber!" The Zhang and Lu families had been close for centuries, so the old woman knew a bit about the Lu family's most precious artifacts and quickly recognized the one Lu Baichuan had summoned. The silver moon purple frost saber, like the thunder wind hammer, was an Origin King grade high-rank artifact. These were the two most powerful artifacts owned by the Lu family. Generally speaking, they would be held by different individuals, but now they both appeared in Lu Baichuan's hands. Be careful, little brother, this silver moon purple frost saber was originally a Dao source grade artifact refined by an artifact refining grandmaster, but due to some sort of failure in the refinement process, it only ended up as an Origin King grade high rank. Nevertheless, it still contains a trace of principal strength. The old woman opened her mouth to warn. Old thing, shut your mouth. Lu Baichuan was furious. He was locked in a life-or-death fight with Yang Kai, but the old woman was completely exposing all his secrets. So how could Lu Baichuan not be angry? With a glance, he silently signaled to the other members of the bridal procession, and they swiftly turned to attack the Zhang family. In this team, there were 3 Origin Kings, and although these 3 were just first-order Origin Kings, that was more than enough to deal with the current Zhang family. Seeing the Lu family's people rushing over, the old woman gripped her cane tightly and exchanged a glance with the middle-aged woman. Nodding to one another, they bravely led the Zhang family's people into battle against the enemy. After Lu Baichuan summoned the silver moon purple frost saber, he immediately gripped it tightly and sneered over at Yang Kai. Boy, I won't waste my breath with you. Hand over that thing and I'll spare your life. Otherwise you'll die under my blade. Just where are you getting all your confidence from? Yang Kai laughed and scornfully beckoned to him. If you want to do it, hurry up and do it. I'm quite interested in the power of your saber. Since you refuse a toast, you must drink a loss. Lu Baichuan was thoroughly enraged now and shouted. In that case, this Lu will let you witness his might. As soon as these words fell, he held up the silver moon purple frost saber in front of his chest and spat out a mouthful of blood essence onto it, causing it to hum slightly as a trace of principal strength began to radiate from it. Feeling the unique sensation of principal strength, Yang Kai's eyes narrowed and his expression became more solemn. The old woman saying that this silver moon purple frost saber was a failed Dao source grade artifact was definitely correct, as an ordinary Origin King grade artifact couldn't have such an effect. Of course, this was also only possible because Lu Baichuan's own cultivation had reached a certain height, his Saint Qi being fully transformed into Source Qi, while he had likely touched upon the mysteries of the Dao Source realm and principal strength. All of this was essential as an average third-order Origin King would not be able to produce such a result even if they had the silver moon purple frost saber. The principles inspired by the saber were naturally ice principles, and although the effect was quite subtle, even somewhat faint, it was still the domain of Dao Source realm masters. With this artifact in hand, Lu Baichuan's combat power had risen to a new level. There were now faint signs of the surrounding space being frozen, and with Lu Baichuan at the center, layers of frost began to spread outwards. The patriarch of the Lu family suddenly let out a great roar and with a single step, disappeared from where he stood and then reappeared in front of Yang Kai, slashing out with the saber in his hands. The blade flashed as it released an extremely powerful aura, one that seemed completely overwhelming and unavoidable. Moreover, with the ice principles emanating from the blade sealing the surrounding space, there was no way Yang Kai should have been able to avoid this blow. Ha 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 ha! Lu Baichuan laughed madly as a happy expression filled his face. Like an ant trying to stop a cart, such overconfidence. He was completely certain that his attack had succeeded in dispatching Yang Kai, because he had already killed several third-order Origin Kings with the very same move in the past. However, in the next instant, his eyes suddenly shrank as he stared forward in amazement. Standing before him, Yang Kai, who should have been split in half without being able to resist, actually remained completely unscathed, with no trace of any kind of wounds on his body. In his hands at this moment was a verdant-colored long sword that had no edge. From this sword, a sort of snake had emerged and was even now blocking the terrifying slash the silver moon purple frost saber had released. The ice principles which should have rendered any Origin King powerless didn't seem to affect Yang Kai at all. In fact, with just a flick of his wrist, the verdant long sword released a strange power that instantly disintegrated the ice principles and scattered them to the wind. You? Lu Baichuan's face changed wildly as he called out sharply. You can also utilize principal strength? Principal strength was the ultimate power that governed the world itself. In this world, only those who had reached the Tao source realm could touch upon the strength, while origin kings could not use it at all. Lu Baichuan had only managed to inspire traces of principal strength thanks to his special silver moon purple frost saber. But now it seemed Yang Kai could do the same, or possibly even better. Seeing Yang Kai easily disperse his killing blow, Lu Baichuan realized that his opponent had surpassed 99% of all peak-level origin kings and was likely on the verge of breaking through to the Tao source realm. Without the support of principal strength, Yang Kai could easily handle an attack from an origin king grade high-rank artifact. Boy, you've been playing the pig to eat a tiger. Curse you! Lu Baichuan roared indignantly. Yang Kai laughed. Blame your dog eyes for looking down on people too much. As he spoke, he pushed the dragon bone sword in his hand forward with force and sent Lu Baichuan crashing to the ground like a meteorite. Upon landing, though, Lu Baichuan immediately steadied himself and formed a seal with his hands. The earth began to rumble, and in a series of bangs, 3 earth dragons shot up from the ground, roaring as they rose up to attack Yang Kai. Earth Dragon Dance! Lu Baichuan shouted sharply before he swiftly turned around, ignoring the life or death of the other Lu family members, and fled. Sir Yang, he's going to run! Zhang Ruoxi suddenly shouted softly. This little girl, who was just a first-order Saint King, could not contribute anything to the battle between the Lu and Zhang families and could only hide in the back and observe from a distance. When she saw Lu Baichuan flee, though, she could not help calling out. He won't get away! Yang Kai snorted coldly before he slashed forward with his dragon bone sword, chopping the 3 earth dragons into dust before his body flickered and disappeared. Although he did not have any grudge with the Lu family, he had an agreement with Zhang Gaoxian, and against such a shameless man like Lu Baichuan, Yang Kai had no qualms about acting ruthlessly. Lu Baichuan using these 3 earth dragons seemed to only be an act to buy time, but it did not play any role. By the time Yang Kai appeared again, he had already caught up and swung out his dragon bone sword. Yang Kai was about to deliver a fatal blow to Lu Baichuan, but suddenly, the Lu family patriarch, who seemed to be fleeing with all his might, turned around and flashed a vicious, victorious grin. In the next instant, he flicked his wrist towards Yang Kai. A strange, subtle power fluctuation propagated. Yang Kai's brow rose sharply as his expression suddenly became weird. Instantly, he reached forward with his hand and grabbed the air. Ha 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 ha! Lu Baichuan stopped, as if he was watching a joke, and smiled at Yang Kai mockingly. Seems you can't wait to court death. Really? Yang Kai glanced at him in a sidelong manner as he twirled something in his fingers lightly. Lu Baichuan's smile suddenly stiffened as his face began to twitch and a voice filled with shock called out, Impossible! That is impossible! There's no way you could break the secret technique this old master spent half his life studying. So this is what you were relying on, and running away was just an act to get me to lower my guard? As Yang Kai spoke, he clenched his fist, and the subtle energy fluctuation lingering around it flickered and disappeared. Seeing this, Lu Baichuan's face really paled this time as he realized he was completely not Yang Kai's opponent. If he continued the fight, he would definitely die. So without hesitation, he immediately fled without another word. Interesting, it turned out to be Space Force. Yang Kai did not chase immediately this time, and instead just observed Lu Baichuan's disappearing figure. Just now, Lu Baichuan had lured him close by pretending to escape and then launched a sneak attack, one that was actually comprised of Space Force. Although this attack was nowhere near as powerful as Yang Kai's Moonblade, it could at least be considered a condensed Space Needle. Space Force was incredibly difficult to guard against, and if one was caught off guard, Lu Baichuan's technique might really have been able to hit its mark. Once that happened, a tiny Space Needle could really kill. Unfortunately for Lu Baichuan, he had actually tried to use Space Force against Yang Kai. How was that any different from using a blunt kitchen knife to attack a man holding a peerless sword? Glancing back, the battle between the Lu and Zhang families was in a state of chaos. Although the Zhang family was composed entirely of orphans and widows now, and the number of masters on their side was lower, each of them fought without fear of death, each of their moves fierce and resolute. This was especially true of the old woman and middle-aged beauty who were first-order origin kings. Their reckless assault, which completely ignored their own safety, caused great hardship to the Lu family masters. However, in the end, the difference in strength was obvious, and if things continued as they were, it would only be a matter of time before the Lu family won. But now that Lu Baichuan was unable to compete with Yang Kai for even half a cup of tea's time and was forced to escape, everything was different. This shocked the rest of the Lu family members, and they lost all will to fight, only wanting to flee from this place as soon as possible. Yang Kai saw this, flicked his wrist, and sent out a dozen golden blood threads which swiftly transformed into 3 golden spears that flew out and pierced through the 3 Lu family origin king realm cultivators, causing them severe injuries. The rest of the mixed fish are yours to deal with. I'm going to pursue Lu Baichuan. Yang Kai did not finish all of the enemies off, and instead just took out the 3 first-order origin kings before turning and chasing after Lu Baichuan. Many thanks, little brother. The old woman was overjoyed and quickly rallied the rest of the Zhang family to battle. With the 3 first-order origin kings already having lost the ability to fight, now was the perfect time to take revenge with their own hands, so how could the old woman hesitate? While directing her anger and hatred at the enemy, she was also immensely grateful to Yang Kai. To the northwest of Maplewood City, 1,000 kilometers away from the Zhang family manor, another large complex stood. Above the gates, the words Lu Mansion were written boldly. Obviously, this was the residence of the Lu family. Inside the Lu Mansion, lavish decorations had been put up while everyone was continuing with preparations for the marriage ceremony. All of them completely unaware that catastrophe was approaching. It was not until Lu Baichuan suddenly appeared in the main hall of the mansion that a few of the Lu family cultivators realized something was wrong. Patriarch, didn't you go to the Zhang family to welcome the new bride? Why have you suddenly returned alone? The auspicious hour has not yet arrived. A Lu family origin returning realm cultivator asked curiously. Pass the order. Make everyone pack up everything of value with all haste. We must leave here as soon as possible. After Lu Baichuan gave these words, he did not explain any more and immediately rushed deeper into the mansion. What? A few of the Lu family leaders looked at each other in confusion. However, although Lu Baichuan did not leave much information, all of them were able to infer from his expression that something bad would soon happen. What's more, they did not dare disobey the patriarch's order, so after a quick discussion they immediately began carrying out his command. In the backyard of the Lu family, in front of a secret room, Lu Baichuan hurriedly took out a token and opened a few dozen barriers before diving inside. This secret room was not very big, but it was where the Lu family had stored its accumulated treasures over the years. Almost all of the Lu family's source crystals were also stored. At the center of this secret room, there was a pitch-black round jade suspended in the air, slowly rotating, and from time to time giving off a profound but indescribable light. As soon as Lu Baichuan rushed into the secret room, he hurriedly moved to this round jade. It seemed that in this secret room, only this round jade was of any worth to him. Just as he was reaching out to retrieve this black jade though, he suddenly turned around and shouted, "Who?" Because at that moment, he noticed another living being behind him. Huh? At the same time, a mutter of surprise left Yang Kai's lips as his figure appeared behind Lu Baichuan, a look of astonishment on his face. As early as halfway back to the Lu mansion, Yang Kai had already caught up to Lu Baichuan. But he did not immediately show up to attack him and instead quietly trailed behind. With Yang Kai's powerful divine sense and his nihility secret technique, if he wanted to hide, even most Dao Source Realm masters would be unable to detect him, much less Lu Baichuan, who was running away in a panic. As for the reason he didn't kill Lu Baichuan immediately, it was because Yang Kai was a bit curious about him. The Dao of space was not so easy to comprehend, and even if Lu Baichuan could only condense a small space needle, that was enough to show he had some competency in the Dao of space. As such, Yang Kai wanted to investigate him a bit. After noticing that Lu Baichuan had entered this secret room, Yang Kai hurriedly followed him inside, maintaining nihility to observe him from up close. But something he didn't expect suddenly happened. The moment he entered this secret room, nihility was actually forcefully dispersed by some strange force, revealing him. Yang Kai clearly felt that this force emanated from the pitch-black round jade suspended up ahead. "You? How did you come in?" Lu Baichuan shouted in a high-pitched voice as he stared at Yang Kai like he was a ghost. Yang Kai withdrew his gaze from the round black jade, glanced at Lu Baichuan, and grinned. Naturally, I followed you inside. Damn. Do you really insist on killing ruthlessly? Little brother, this old master has never met you before today and has no grievances or grudges with you. So why take things to such extremes? Instead of fighting with this old master and ending with mutual wounds, why not let matters end here? If you agree, this old master can allow you to leave here unharmed. Lu Baichuan saw that Yang Kai hadn't immediately attacked him and forced himself to calm down. If I want to leave, do I need your consent? Yang Kai sneered. Moreover, although I have no grudge with you, since I have agreed to the Zhang family's request, I can't let you live anymore. Boy, don't go too far. Do you really think that this old master is afraid of you? If so, I advise you to think twice. Lu Baichuan saw Yang Kai's standoffish attitude and immediately understood that it was useless to say anything more. There was nothing more to do now but fight. As he spoke, Lu Baichuan pushed his strength madly and rushed towards Yang Kai, murderous intent filling his bloodshot eyes as he summoned his thunder wind hammer again and sent out bolts of lightning to fill the secret room. Yang Kai smiled lightly at this sight and just shouted, "Come out!" As he spoke, he waved his hand casually. The pure white monster insect queen, wielding its blue and purple dual swords, made a grand entrance. As soon as monster insect Queen Yu appeared, she received Yang Kai's order and waved her swords towards Lu Baichuan. Yang Kai didn't want to expose the existence of the monster insect queen, but inside this secret room, there was just him and Lu Baichuan, so there was no issue. The monster insect queen could now rival a second-order Dao source realm cultivator, so dealing with Lu Baichuan was naturally a breeze. Feeling the aura emanating from monster insect queen, Lu Baichuan was startled and cried out in shock, "An 11th order monster beast?" Instantly, his face turned pale and all his fighting spirit disappeared. He was currently just a 3rd order origin king, so after encountering an ordinary 11th order monster beast, he would have no choice but to flee. What's more, at first glance, it was obvious the monster insect queen in front of him was no ordinary 11th order monster beast. It was wielding dual sword artifacts after all. Little brother. This Lu acknowledges his punishment is deserved and asks little brother to show mercy by not killing him. Lu Baichuan immediately begged for mercy without any shame. Yang Kai flatly ignored him. Naturally, the monster insect queen would not pay attention to Lu Baichuan's begging, and the icy aura it released surged as it swung the dual swords down. Suddenly, the inside of the secret room became chaotic as Lu Baichuan called out repeatedly. Even going all out, he couldn't protect himself from the monster insect queen, and it was not long before he was bleeding from cuts all over his body. In the meantime, Yang Kai had arrived in front of the pitch-black round jade and was frowning as he observed it. This thing was extremely weird. Yang Kai's divine sense was able to penetrate it, but when it did it was as if it was sinking into a bottomless ocean. On top of that, it was able to disperse his nihility secret technique somehow or another. After studying it for a while, Yang Kai stretched out his hand and grabbed the pitch-black round jade. But unexpectedly, nothing happened. Even after pouring his strength into it, the jade did not respond at all. Strange. Yang Kai shook his head. Little brother, mercy. If you want to know the purpose of that thing, this Lu can tell you. All he asks is you spare his life. Lu Baichuan had been forced into a corner by the monster insect queen at this moment and had no way out. What made him feel resentful at this moment was how sturdy this secret room was. Long ago, his Lu family ancestors had spent a great sum of money to create a secret room that even a Dao Source Realm master would find difficult to break out of in short order, so there was naturally no way Lu Baichuan could simply smash a wall and escape. Do you know the details of this thing? Yang Kai turned to look at him. Lu Baichuan said anxiously, I know. Yang Kai nodded, and in the next moment, with a single command from his divine sense, the monster insect queen froze in place, its dual swords less than a finger length away from Lu Baichuan's forehead. Some residual sword chi from the swords even shaved off a few of Lu Baichuan's hairs. The hair fell through the air and passed by Lu Baichuan's eyes, making him leak cold sweat all over. Talk. What is this thing? Why can it break my secret technique? Yang Kai asked after fiddling a bit with the pitch-black jade in his hand. Lu Baichuan gulped hard before he weakly glanced over at the monster insect queen standing in front of him, not understanding how a trivial origin king like Yang Kai could command such a powerful monster beast. Don't get any ideas, or I'll kill you immediately. Yang Kai couldn't help coldly snorting when he saw Lu Baichuan's expression flickering. Lu Baichuan quickly understood something and hesitantly asked, "This old master admits the punishment is deserved, so he would not dare try anything. But if this old master can provide little brother with the information he wants, can little brother spare his life? Are you trying to negotiate terms with me?" Yang Kai grinned. "I would not dare." Lu Baichuan waved his hand quickly. "It's just, this old master really doesn't want to die." "No one wants to die." Yang Kai nodded. "Good. I can give you a way out." Lu Baichuan was overjoyed and was about to speak when Yang Kai continued. "Of course, the premise is that the information you provide can satisfy me." Lu Baichuan's face suddenly became bitter as he said, "This old master will not conceal anything." "Very good." Yang Kai nodded in satisfaction, stretching out his hand and pulling over a stone bench from somewhere inside the secret room before sitting down casually. Still playing with the black jade in his hand, he asked once more, "What is this thing?" Lu Baichuan quickly replied, "A space spirit jade." "Space spirit jade?" Yang Kai raised his brow, as if thinking of something before asking, "What is its relationship with space spirit crystal?" Lu Baichuan hurriedly replied, "Space spirit jade is produced at the cores of pure, condensed space spirit crystals. Less than 1 in 10,000 space spirit crystals will produce a space spirit jade. So it's the core of a space spirit crystal?" Yang Kai's expression changed. "Indeed, but this doesn't seem to be a pure space spirit jade. It seems to have been blended with other materials by some powerful master and refined into a type of artifact." Lu Baichuan explained further. "Oh? You know quite a bit," Yang Kai said with some surprise. "Little brother flatters me. This old master has been studying it for many years and read many ancient books to come up with these speculations." Lu Baichuan smiled, his expression fluctuating quite a bit as he hesitantly asked, "Dare I ask if little brother cultivates Space Force?" "Don't you?" Yang Kai looked at him faintly. Lu Baichuan smiled bitterly. How can this old master's comprehension of the Tao of space compare to little brother's? After little brother caught this old master space needle with one hand, this old master had some faint guesses, but now it seems to be true. If little brother did not cultivate Space Force, how could he have accomplished such a feat? Just some paltry tricks? Yang Kai snorted. Yes. This old master's accomplishments are like dim fireflies compared to little brother's brilliant moon. Cease your flattery and get to the point. How did you manage to cultivate Space Force? Does it have something to do with this space spirit jade? Yang Kai continued to inquire. Little brother's insight is indeed sharp. Lu Baichuan nodded. The reason why I know something about Space Force is because of this space spirit jade. Hearing what he said, Yang Kai's doubts disappeared. When his nihility secret technique was cracked by the space spirit jade, he had a guess that Lu Baichuan's comprehension of the Tao of space was related to it. As this old master said before, this space spirit jade seems to have been refined into a peculiar artifact by some powerful master. But this old master is unable to draw out any of its power and only inadvertently gained some inspiration from it which allowed him to begin cultivating Space Force. Lu Baichuan explained while carefully observing the changes in Yang Kai's expression. However, Yang Kai's face remained as tranquil as an ancient well, with no joy, sorrow, or interest showing at all, causing Lu Baichuan to become more and more nervous. How difficult the Tao of space is to cultivate, I understand well. If one does not have the appropriate aptitude for it, even spending 1,000 years would not be enough to learn anything. I'm a little curious, what kind of opportunity did you have that allowed you to accidentally comprehend Space Force from this thing? Squinting at Lu Baichuan, Yang Kai asked lightly, "If you dare to speak any lies, I'll make you beg for death." Lu Baichuan shivered in fright as he quickly said, "Little brother, I would not dare tell any lies. Since little brother wants to know, this old master will naturally explain clearly. There truly was a special opportunity that allowed this old master to spy on the mysteries of the Tao of space. It is a long story though. Actually, this thing was not originally my Lu family's, but the Zhang family's. Then how did your Lu family come to possess it? Did you steal it? Yang Kai looked at him and sneered. Lu Baichuan waved his hand. Little brother misunderstands. This thing was part of the dowry the Lu family received when a woman from the Zhang family married into the Lu family 200 years ago. You should know that my Lu family and the Zhang family have several hundred years of friendship, so marriages between us are. What does that have to do with the opportunity you obtained? Yang Kai cut in, still quite confused. Please be patient, little brother. This old master will explain everything. Lu Baichuan squeezed out a smile, but seeing Yang Kai's cold glare, he didn't dare to dally and quickly continued. After listening to Lu Baichuan's explanation, Yang Kai understood the whole story. According to him, this space spirit jade was the dowry of a woman from the Zhang family who married into the Lu family 200 years ago. The Lu family patriarch at that time had also studied this treasure many times, but never discovered anything about it. At that time, the Lu family patriarch even consulted the Zhang family patriarch about the purpose of the space spirit jade. But even the Zhang family patriarch only thought of it as a rare artifact refining material. The Lu family patriarch believed that to be true and took the space spirit jade to a few artifact refining grandmasters, wanting to refine it into something more practical. Unfortunately, those artifact refining grandmasters were unable to melt this rare artifact refining material, let alone forge it into something. None could even tell what its origins were. Since then, this space spirit jade had been stashed away in the Lu family's vault until Lu Baichuan's generation. How did you discover its purpose and realize you could use it to cultivate Space Force? Yang Kai asked curiously. It was all a coincidence. Lu Baichuan gave a wry smile and continued, 10 years ago, when this Lu was cultivating in this secret room, he accidentally discovered that this space spirit jade was emitting some subtle energy fluctuations. At that time, this Lu was surprised and went to investigate, but did not learn anything useful. Soon after, the fluctuations ceased. At that time, this Lu merely thought he was seeing things and didn't take it to heart. After half a year, it reacted again. This old master realized when this phenomenon occurred once more that it was no mere illusion. The second incident lasted for much longer, but unfortunately, I was still unable to learn much. It was 2 more years before the fluctuations resurfaced, and this time they persisted for 3 whole months, allowing this Lu to finally glean something from it, including the method to begin cultivating Space Force. Something so convoluted actually happened? Yang Kai looked at Lu Baichuan suspiciously. This Lu would not dare to lie. This is the entire truth, Lu Baichuan said hastily. Yang Kai nodded. Go on. I want to know why this space spirit jade responds only at random intervals. Lu Baichuan gave a wry smile. This Lu thought the same as little brother at the time, that everything was random. Since this Lu managed to obtain great benefits from this phenomenon, however, he naturally did not want to miss any opportunity. Later, after careful investigation, this Lu realized that only when a certain individual came to my Lu family did the space spirit jade react. What individual? Yang Kai's eyes flashed. Lu Baichuan's mouth twitched. It was a little girl from the Zhang family? Yang Kai frowned, but soon seemed to understand something and asked, Zhang Ruoxi? Indeed. Lu Baichuan nodded and explained. Every time this space spirit jade has reacted, that little girl was inside my Lu family and staying close to this vault. If the first 2 times could be written off as coincidence, the third time settled things because at that time that little girl stayed in my Lu family for an entire month, and only after she left did the space spirit jade fall silent again. After this Lu had the speculation, he paid special attention to it, and sure enough, every time that little girl from the Zhang family came to my Lu family, the space spirit jade would show a reaction. What's more, as she grew older, the jade's reaction became stronger and stronger. This Lu has no aptitude in the Tao of space. The only reason this Lu was able to cultivate his space needle was thanks to this jade. That little girl actually has some kind of connection to this thing? Yang Kai was also a little surprised. There were only two possible explanations for this situation. One was that Zhang Ruoxi had some kind of special constitution which was able to induce a reaction from the space spirit jade. The second was that she had some kind of bloodline connection to this space spirit jade. However, Yang Kai examined Zhang Ruoxi before and had not discovered anything special about her. Though, determining if she had a special constitution would require a more careful inspection. As for the second possibility, the chances were low because if Zhang Ruoxi was inspiring a reaction due to her bloodline, other members of the Zhang family should have been able to do so as well. Of course, there could be special circumstances, like Zhang Ruoxi's bloodline suddenly awakening after generations of slumber, or her bloodline being more concentrated due to a sudden mutation, making her unique compared to the rest of the Zhang family. Yang Kai frowned as he sank into contemplation while Lu Baichuan didn't dare to move, only able to observe expression anxiously. So, you wanted one of your descendants to marry Zhang Ruoxi for this space spirit jade? Yang Kai suddenly asked. Lu Baichuan smiled awkwardly, nodded. Exactly. As long as that little girl remained inside my Lu family, this old master would be able to study this space spirit jade longer, and it may not have been impossible to delve further into the Tao of space. As he spoke, Lu Baichuan's tone grew more and more frantic, but soon depression overtook him. A single mistake had caused him to lose this opportunity, and now whether he lived or died was up to Yang Kai's mood, so there was no need to think about future glory. Little brother, I have told you everything I know. All I request is that little brother allows me to live. Lu Baichuan looked at Yang Kai anxiously. Yang Kai nodded and said with a smile, Not a problem. Many thanks, little brother. Lu Baichuan was overjoyed and bowed his head, but as soon as the voice fell, he suddenly let out a painful scream as his body was thrown out like a sack, smashing into the wall and causing his bones to shatter while a mouthful of blood spewed from his lips. You? Lu Baichuan looked at Yang Kai incredulously, as if he did not expect that after Yang Kai agreed to let him live, he would still launch such a vicious attack. I promise to spare your life, so I won't kill you, you can be assured of that. Yang Kai continued to smile. However, whether the Zhang family kills you or not is none of my business. The smile on Yang Kai's face looked as terrifying as that of a reaper from the underworld to Lu Baichuan. Feeling pain in his body, heart, and soul, he coughed up another mouthful of blood and passed out. Yang Kai turned around, swept up all the source crystals in the Lu family vault, removed Lu Baichuan's space ring, then hoisted him over his shoulder before he began searching for a way to open the various barriers. It took Yang Kai a little time, but eventually, he managed to disable the arrays protecting the vault. Even with Lu Baichuan's token in hand, the dozens of barriers weren't so easy to open. By the time he left the vault, about half a day had passed. Sweeping the complex with his divine sense, Yang Kai could not help but feel a little astonished. This Lu family is really skilled at fleeing. There's actually no one left. When Lu Baichuan asked the Lu family members to pack up their things and leave as soon as possible, Yang Kai was also hiding nearby and heard it, but he hadn't expected their efficiency to be so high. However, that did not matter. Yang Kai had promised the Zhang family's old matriarch he would obtain vengeance for them, and now that Lu Baichuan was captured by him, and the 3 origin kings who had gone to the Zhang family had been crippled by him, his task could be basically considered complete. Yang Kai had never intended to slaughter the Lu family to the last. After all, there were over 300 members of the Lu family, many of them elderly or children, so even if they were right before his eyes, Yang Kai would not have been able to just kill them. And so, after seeing that the Lu family had fled, he did not have any intentions of chasing them down and instead flew back the way he came leisurely. At that moment, in front of the Zhang family manor, red blood covering the earth as the broken corpses of the 3 Lu family origin kings lay on the ground. None of the members of the Lu family that had come with this bridal procession had been spared. All of them were killed by the Zhang family's people. The old woman was pale, covered in blood, her own and her enemies', while the middle-aged beauty also had a chaotic aura, her jade white hand trembling as it held her sword. On her delicate face, there was some crimson blood that added a dreadful kind of beauty to her. The fat and thin cultivators were both lying on the ground, one of them leaking blood from his leg with the other was clasping his stomach, which was oozing red. Although the Lu family's bridal procession had been wiped out, countless people from the Zhang family's side had also been injured. Fortunately, no one had died, which was a small blessing. The team of women were cleaning up the battlefield even now, kicking and spitting on the dead bodies of the Lu family cultivators as they worked. After taking a short break, the middle-aged beauty said, "Mother, little brother Yang has been gone for almost a day now. I would like to go and see what the situation is and if he requires assistance. What do you think?" "All right." The old woman nodded. "But be careful." "Yes." The middle-aged beauty nodded sternly, and without even taking the time to restore herself, turned to fly towards the Lu family. At that moment, Zhang Ruoxi suddenly cried out, "Grandma does not need to worry. Sir Yang seems to be back." Hearing what she said, the old woman and the middle-aged beauty quickly turned their gazes towards the horizon where they saw a figure quickly flying over. "You're right, he's back." The middle-aged beauty calmed down. The old woman also smiled and said, "Little brother Yang is quite amazing, coming back safely." "Oh, he seems to be carrying something. It's a person?" The middle-aged woman stared attentively, and when Yang Kai approached, her tender body suddenly trembled as she shouted, "It's old dog Lu Bai Chuan. Brother Yang managed to capture and bring back that old dog." "Really?" The old woman's eyes flashed as she hurriedly got up and stared towards the distance. Soon after, she burst into laughter and cheered, "It's really that old dog Bai Chuan. Retribution has come. Gao Xian, my son, you can rest in peace now." As she spoke, 2 tears rolled down her wrinkled cheeks. Zhang Ruoxi supported the old woman as she wept with both sorrow and joy. Soon, Yang Kai landed before the crowd, threw the half-dead Lu Bai Chuan to the ground, and cupped his fists. "I've kept you waiting. Good, little brother has worked hard. Little brother, for this great kindness, my Zhang family is eternally grateful," the old woman said solemnly. Yang Kai simply waved his hand and said, "Old madam need not be so polite. I'm simply fulfilling the agreement I made with brother Zhang." Hearing him mention Zhang Gao Xian, the old woman's face could not help turning slightly gloomy again. "Ah, I also brought Lu Bai Chuan back with me. I'll leave what to do with him up to old madam." Yang Kai quickly changed the subject. In the middle of the night, inside the Zhang family manor, inside an elegant hall, the old matriarch of the Zhang family hosted a dinner in Yang Kai's honor to thank him. Only Yang Kai, the middle-aged beauty, and the old matriarch attended. The young girl, Zhang Ruoxi, stood to the side, waiting eagerly, pouring drinks for the 3 of them as she cast Yang Kai glances from time to time with her beautiful eyes, her gaze filled with gratitude and admiration. This young girl was only 16 or 17, an age where she was still enamored with stories of heroes and legends. Today, Yang Kai had almost single-handedly destroyed the Lu family and avenged the wrongs that had befallen her Zhang family. So how could she not worship him? Among the people she met in her life, Zhang Gaoxian was probably the strongest, but unfortunately, her father had died inside the 5-colored treasure pagoda. Now though, Yang Kai seemed quite young, but clearly possessed even greater strength than her father. It was only natural she stole a few glances at him. Perhaps it was also due to the aroma of the wine, but the little girl's delicate face now had a healthy blush on it. However, she still maintained excellent decorum and would promptly perform her serving duties without a single mistake. "My Zhang family does not have much in the way of hospitality, but I do hope Sir Benefactor will enjoy what little we do have." Although the old matriarch was still injured, she still had a ruddy look on her face and politely offered Yang Kai the best she could. The middle-aged beauty also spoke to him warmly. "Old madam is too polite, and there is no need to address me as sir or benefactor. If old madam does not mind, please just address Junior by name directly." Yang Kai felt quite uncomfortable when the old woman addressed him so formally. After the Zhang family killed Lu Bai Chuan, Yang Kai wanted to leave. If it weren't for Zhang Ruoxi's relationship with the space spirit jade, he would never have agreed to remain. However, he didn't know how to bring up this subject. He instinctively felt that this space spirit jade was hiding many secrets, ones likely related to the Zhang family, so talking about it rashly would only be counterproductive. As such, he could only look for the right opportunity. Considering all this, he couldn't help glancing over at Zhang Ruoxi, just to find that this little girl was also quietly looking at himself with a pair of bright eyes. Seeing Yang Kai looking towards her, Zhang Ruoxi was shocked and hastily lowered her head, her pretty face turning bright red as she stared at the floor. Yang Kai chuckled and looked away casually. The beautiful woman sitting on the left side of Yang Kai saw this scene, and many thoughts flashed across her mind as a slight smile appeared on her lips. "Old madam, the Liu family matter has been settled, so according to our previous discussion, the agreement between myself and Brother Zhang has now been completed," Yang Kai said with a solemn expression. "Naturally," the old woman nodded. "As for the Tao source pill, after I find an alchemist to refine it, old madam may rest assured that I will find a way to deliver one to the Zhang family." The old woman chuckled. "This old woman believes in Sir Benefactor's character, and my Zhang family is in no hurry now. Currently, my Zhang family has suffered severe damage, so even if we were to receive a Tao source pill, what could we do with it? So, Benefactor need not worry about this issue. We can discuss it after the pill has been refined." "That would be best," Yang Kai nodded. At that moment, the middle-aged beauty, who had not much that evening, suddenly spoke. "Brother Yang is so young but has such amazing cultivation, an extraordinary hero worthy of admiration. There must be many women who have shown you favor, yes." Yang Kai was startled when he heard these words, never having expected them to come up and from a woman no less. The old woman also frowned, and although she felt that it was a bit inappropriate for a woman to talk about such a topic with Yang Kai, she knew her daughter-in-law was not one for casual gossip, so she didn't interrupt and instead just observed. The middle-aged woman was also observing the situation carefully, and after seeing the shock fade from Yang Kai's eyes and be replaced with a look of fond reminiscence, she immediately knew her speculations were not unfounded. However, if one thought about it a bit, it wasn't too surprising. Despite Yang Kai looking quite young, with a third-order origin king cultivation, it was only natural he had plenty of life experience and would have met at least one or two unforgettable women on his journey through life. It would be stranger if Yang Kai really was divorced from the matters of the heart. The banquet seemed to fall into a strange silence as Yang Kai became lost in his memories. After some time, Yang Kai sighed and stood up. "Old madam, the hour is late, so Junior would like to go back and rest first. Old madam was injured during the battle today, so she should also go back and rest early, lest her wounds become worse." The old woman smiled and nodded. "Many thanks for Sir Benefactor's care. I shall do so. Ruoxi, take Benefactor to the guest room and serve him well." "Yes." Zhang Ruoxi heard this, put down the wine pitcher, and elegantly bowed to Yang Kai. "Sir, please come with me." Yang Kai complied and left with Zhang Ruoxi. After Yang Kai left, the old woman glared at the beautiful woman. The beautiful woman looked embarrassed. Mother, daughter-in-law knows she made an indiscreet remark. Humph. Fortunately, Benefactor seems to have a benevolent nature. Otherwise, this old lady would not spare you. The old woman coldly snorted. The middle-aged beauty nodded repeatedly. "But why did you ask such a question just now?" The old woman frowned and inquired. The beautiful woman smiled and said, "Mother, did you not notice?" Benefactor glanced towards Ruoxi several times during the night. "And so?" the old woman asked. The beautiful woman smiled. "Even though Ruoxi is not a great beauty, she still has her charms. It seems Benefactor is a bit interested in her." The old woman heard this and furrowed her brow. "That can't be, no? Ruoxi is just a first-order Saint King. How could she enter Benefactor's vision?" The beautiful woman pursed her lips and smiled. "Mother, men do not only care about a woman's cultivation. Their feelings also matter as well. If there is an attraction, no matter how low a woman's cultivation is, it will not matter, and if there are no such feelings, it will not matter how high a woman's cultivation is." The old woman immediately became a bit disgruntled as she snapped. "Are you implying this old woman does not understand the ways of men and women?" The beautiful woman spat out her tongue. "Daughter-in-law had no such intentions. However, right now, my Zhang family is weak. Gao Xian died inside the five-colored treasure pagoda, And although the Lu family is now gone, meaning there is no need to worry about foreign enemies in the short term, Mother must not forget that in the surrounding region, it is not just the Lu family that has an interest in us. If my Zhang family does not have a master to protect it, what will we do if a strong enemy invades? The 3 favors Gao Xian secured from Benefactor for us have also been used up, so it will be impossible to ask him to help in the future. What you mean is, the old woman asked thoughtfully, if my Zhang family can form a relationship with Benefactor, if the Zhang family encounters trouble in the future, will he just stand by and watch? The beautiful woman smiled elegantly. And Ruoxi is the key to forming such a relationship. I understand what you want to say. The old woman nodded and said seriously. If it is as you said, this is an excellent plan. Gao Xian has died, and my Zhang family really must begin considering its future. N. He is so young yet has already reached the third-order origin king realm, and judging from his performance during the day, it seems that he is not an ordinary third-order origin king. No ordinary third-order origin king would be capable of plunging into the Lu family and capturing Lu Baichuan alive. With his aptitude, breaking through to the Dao source realm in the future is not impossible. If my Zhang family could be connected with him, it would be the same as enjoying cool shade under a big tree. Even if he did not remain here, who would dare to provoke us? Hearing this, the old woman's eyes lit up and she also became excited. Around Maplewood City, there weren't many families that had a Dao Source Realm Master. If a Dao Source Realm Master was sheltering them, that family could at least remain worry-free for 100 years. But she still hesitated. It is as you say, but I'm afraid all this is still just our wishful thinking, and if we were to upset Benefactor in any way. The beautiful woman smiled. Mother, we can do this? As she spoke, she leaned forward and whispered in the old woman's ear. The old woman listened and nodded repeatedly, and after a long time smiled and said, Good, good, very good, we'll follow your plan. But doing this will probably make Ruoxi suffer. The beautiful woman smiled and shook her head. Why would this make her suffer? I think Benefactor is by no means a villain, and if Ruoxi can really follow him, she will likely be extremely happy. Mother, rest assured, I will go and explain everything to Ruoxi tonight. Good. But if Ruoxi disagrees, don't force her. I don't want to exchange her happiness for the future of my Zhang family. The old woman nodded. Under the guidance of the young girl, Yang Kai walked through the manor until finally arriving at a certain room. The young girl opened the door and quickly prepared the beddings inside. Yang Kai exchanged a few words with her on the way, but judging from the girl's reaction, she was extremely shy. When answering Yang Kai's question, her voice trembled and her face flushed while she constantly apologized to Yang Kai, even if she had done nothing wrong. After everything was prepared, the girl bowed and said, Sir, please rest. Ruoxi will take her leave. And good work. Yang Kai nodded. The girl hurriedly walked by him, and with the faint moonlight, Yang Kai was able to make out a hint of red coloring her cheeks all the way to her ears. After the girl left, Yang Kai turned his head and looked around the room, finding that it was decorated quite luxuriously. With a wave of his hand, he used his qi and spiritual energy to create a barrier around the room to isolate it from the outside. With a flicker, he arrived atop the bed and sat down cross-legged to begin checking his harvest from the day. Needless to say, the things he obtained from the Lu family vault were not plentiful nor poor. Just the source crystals alone number more than 600,000. With Yang Kai's previous gains, he now had almost 1 million low-rank source crystals. There were also some artifacts in the vault, all of them origin king grade. Yang Kai had only glanced at them before tossing them into his space ring. As for the rare ores, he had thrown them into his sealed world bead, so his embodiment could absorb them with the heaven-devouring battle law. There were also some pills which Yang Kai quickly sorted through and stored away in case of emergencies. Next, Yang Kai checked Lu Baichuan's space ring and found a similar assortment of items to the ones he found in the vault. As for the Thunder Wind Hammer and Silver Moon Purple Frost Saber, Yang Kai appreciated them a bit more than the other treasures. Although the Thunder Wind Hammer was quite imposing, it was just an Origin King grade artifact in the end, so it was only slightly more valuable. The Silver Moon Purple Frost Saber, on the other hand, was able to display slight traces of principal strength. Before he broke through to the Tao Source realm, this silver moon purple frost saber would have some use to him. His most precious artifacts were the 4 Emperor artifacts he had on him, but none could be easily revealed in front of others. Apart from that, only the Dragon Bone Sword was left. However, Yang Kai had already made up his mind to fuse the Dragon Bone Sword into his body, so this artifact was destined to disappear in the near future. The silver moon purple frost saber would be able to make up for this in the short term. This artifact wasn't too high grade, so it wouldn't be noticeable when he used it, and it could also display the might of principal strength, which boosted its strength greatly. Thinking so, Yang Kai put away the silver moon purple frost saber, not intending on refining it, as that would be a waste of time. This way, when he found something better, he could simply replace it. Then, he solemnly took out the Space Spirit Jade from his space ring. As soon as the dark round jade appeared, Yang Kai felt that it was different from earlier today. At this moment, the Space Spirit Jade was vibrating slightly, while also exuding a profound and mysterious fluctuation. On its surface, a faint trace of black ripples even appeared. The pitch-black jade seemed to grow even darker, like a pure emptiness that wanted to swallow in everything around it. Seems like it's real. Yang Kai saw this and confirmed that the Space Spirit Jade had undergone this change because Zhang Ruoxi was nearby. When Yang Kai had seen it earlier in the day, it was completely still and tranquil. But now, Yang Kai could clearly feel the space force fluctuations coming from the Space Spirit Jade. If someone was immersed in these fluctuations for a long time, it wouldn't be impossible to comprehend space force. Zhang Ruoxi had lived with Lu family for a month at one point, and during that month, Lu Baichuan had an opportunity to comprehend the Tao of space. Obviously, the reason why Lu Baichuan wanted his heir to marry Zhang Ruoxi was entirely because of this Space Spirit Jade. Could even be said that the reason he turned on the Zhang family was related to this. However, Yang Kai wouldn't be able to learn anything from these kinds of fluctuations. If Zhang Ruoxi were to be exposed to this jade, however, he didn't know if a change would occur. This thing was currently in his hands, but ultimately, it stemmed from the Zhang family. It belonged to Yang Kai now though, and it didn't matter if he didn't return it as this was a trophy that the Zhang family no longer had any right to. But that also meant that Yang Kai couldn't just go to the Zhang family to ask about it either. What's more, the Zhang family likely didn't even know anything about this. If they had considered it valuable, they would not have given it away 200 years ago as dowry to the Lu family. It seemed he would need to depend on himself. Yang Kai thus began to study the Space Spirit Jade attentively. Over the next 2 days, Yang Kai stayed with the Zhang family, and he spent almost all his time trying to pry into the secrets of the Space Spirit Jade but got nothing for his investment. When he realized that such investigations were pointless, he also determined that there was no reason to remain with them. As such, he immediately decided to bid farewell to the Zhang family. The old woman and the middle-aged woman tried multiple times to get him to stay, but seeing Yang Kai determined to leave, they did not force the issue and instead saw him out personally. Benefactor, please take care of yourself in the future. If you ever have time to spare, my Zhang family would be honored if you grace us with your presence. After 2 days of recuperation, the old woman looked much better, but due to her age and the damage she had suffered to her foundation, she was unable to completely restore herself. Seeing her act so enthusiastic, Yang Kai simply smiled lightly and said, "If there is a chance, I will stop by. When the time comes, I hope old madam will not shut me out. Benefactor is the sole reason my Zhang family was able to overcome our crisis. But my Zhang family really has nothing to repay you with. This mistress has noticed the benefactor is a lone traveler. So inevitably there must be some inconveniences in benefactor's daily life. As such, this mistress hopes that benefactor will allow Ruoxi to accompany him, so she may tend to his needs in the future." The middle-aged beauty suddenly said while pulling out Zhang Ruoxi, who had been hiding behind her. "Ha!" Yang Kai was stunned for a moment, never having expected the middle-aged woman to make such a proposal, causing him to unconsciously glance towards the young girl. All Yang Kai could see, though, was the little girl lowering her head and playing with her clothes, her face blushing, her lips pressed tightly shut. Yang Kai had a strange feeling in his heart, but soon understood the intentions of this middle-aged beauty. She obviously felt that the Zhang family was severely weakened now and feared that powerful enemies would covet them in the future. She wanted to build a good relationship with him in hopes he would shelter the Zhang family in the future, and Zhang Ruoxi was the bridge she had chosen to build this relationship on. If he really agreed, he likely wouldn't be able to stand idly by if such calamity befell the Zhang family out of consideration for Zhang Ruoxi. After understanding this, Yang Kai frowned as he instinctively repelled such ideas, but he did not immediately refuse. Because according to his original idea, he was planning on handling affairs with Kang Si-ran first before coming to the Zhang family to stay as a guest to study the space spirit jade. If that wasn't the case, he wouldn't have agreed to the old woman's invitation to visit in the future. However, through some twist of fate, the Zhang family was actually giving Zhang Ruoxi to him. While he found this kind of practice off-putting, he also could not help feeling that good fortune had fallen from the sky and landed in his lap. Seeing Yang Kai hesitating, Zhang Ruoxi seemed to become even more embarrassed. The middle-aged beauty, however, just smiled slightly and said, "Although Ruoxi is a young child with low cultivation, unable to assist Benefactor in battle, she has good talent and is both quiet and clever. If Benefactor takes her with him, he will no longer need to worry about trivial matters in the future and can focus on his own cultivation, as well as breaking through to the Dao source realm as soon as possible." The middle-aged woman vigorously promoted Zhang Ruoxi in front of Yang Kai, while observing his words and expressions. However, if Benefactor is adverse to this idea, then it seems Ruoxi will not be able to enjoy this blessing. As soon as she said this, Zhang Ruoxi could not help trembling slightly as she tightly gripped her small fists. Sister Ruoxi is both refined and intelligent. How could I dislike her? It's just... Yang Kai frowned and glanced at the old woman while speaking, but seeing her looking back at him with some expectation. He knew that this matter had already been discussed between these two women beforehand. Perhaps, during the dinner that night, him glancing at Zhang Ruoxi a few times had caused some kind of misunderstanding. Seeing Zhang Ruoxi's head droop as she bit her thin lip, Yang Kai sighed in his heart and swallowed back the refusal he was about to make. "It's just that I don't want to force someone to do something against their will. Regarding this matter, I will have to ask Miss Ruoxi's opinion. If she wants to go with me, I can take her away from Zhang family. But if she does not want to leave, then I'll pretend I never heard anything." Hearing this, the middle-aged beautiful woman breathed a sigh of relief and smiled. "Of course." Saying so, she turned to Zhang Ruoxi and asked, "Ruoxi, you heard Benefactor's words yourself, so speak your mind. Would you like to leave with Benefactor and serve him from now on?" Zhang Ruoxi did not lift her head and just nodded shyly. The middle-aged woman smiled warmly and spoke once more. "Ruoxi, you need to make yourself clear or Benefactor will not know your true thoughts." Zhang Ruoxi's voice was as quiet as a mosquito as she spoke a simple, "Yes." The middle-aged beauty smiled and turned to Yang Kai. "Benefactor, Ruoxi is willing. No one is forcing her." Yang Kai sighed. "Good, in that case she will accompany me." "Many thanks, sir." Zhang Ruoxi bowed elegantly. "You may rest assured, as long as you remain with me, no one will bully you. Regarding this, old madam may feel relieved." Yang Kai turned to the old woman and said with a serious face. The old woman smiled. "It is Ruoxi's blessing to be able to follow Benefactor, and the Zhang family believes in the character of Benefactor." Yang Kai nodded before turning to Zhang Ruoxi and saying, "If you have anything you wish to say to your family, do so now. I will go on ahead and wait for you." Saying so, Yang Kai flew off a short distance. Glancing back, Zhang Ruoxi had thrown herself into the arms of the old woman. Choking on her sobs, the old woman patting her shoulders to comfort her while telling her something. Next, Zhang Ruoxi bid farewell to the middle-aged woman and the other members of her family one by one. Before leaving, she kowtowed 3 times towards the Zhang family home before turning around and walking out towards where Yang Kai stood. When she got closer, she wiped the tears from the corners of her eyes with her hand and whispered, "Sir, I'm fine now." Yang Kai chuckled. "You don't have to look so forlorn. I live in Maplewood City, so if you ever feel homesick in the future, you can come back here to visit. I won't stop you." Zhang Ruoxi shook her head and said, Grandma said I am no longer a member of the Zhang family, so I do not need to return. I should only serve sir with all my heart. Yang Kai was taken aback for a moment before nodding. Old Madame seems to have considered things carefully. The old woman telling Zhang Ruoxi this was obviously because she was afraid of upsetting Yang Kai. But how could she have known that he would not care about such things at all? The only reason Yang Kai agreed to bring Zhang Ruoxi along with him was because of the space spirit jade. Not because he had any interest in her personally. Yang Kai couldn't be bothered to explain any of this though, so he simply left it as it was. Flying back, Yang Kai realized he did not have a good flight-type artifact, only the star shuttle he had from his native star field, which was far from sufficient for his current needs. As such, he simply wrapped Zhang Ruoxi in his qi and flew back on his own. Zhang Ruoxi only had a first-order Saint King cultivation, and had never left the Zhang family before, nor experienced such a fast flight, so she kept her eyes closed shut with fright and her fists clenched tightly, like she was bracing herself on the way to the execution ground. Yang Kai saw this, smiled, and shook his head, choosing not to say anything. Soon after, Yang Kai arrived at the gates to Maplewood City, landed, and brought Zhang Ruoxi into the city. This little girl had apparently never seen the city due to her constantly attending to the old matriarch in the Zhang family. So after entering, she could not stop her eyes from darting about, taking in all the new and dazzling sights. Yang Kai noticed she was wearing a simple dress with no jewelry on her body and found it a bit pitiful. He wanted to give her something, but was afraid she would misunderstand his intentions, so he simply gave up. Once back at his rented secluded home, Yang Kai took out the identity token and was about to open it when suddenly, someone rushed up to him and called out anxiously, "Alchemist Yang, you're back." Yang Kai heard this voice, turned his head, and saw a familiar face he couldn't help chuckling at. "It's you again?" It was none other than the shop hand from Spirit Pill Plaza he was familiar with. Because Yang Kai often went in and out of Spirit Pill Plaza to refine spirit pills, he had a slight impression of this man. "It is this humble one." The shop hand bowed to Yang Kai. After straightening himself back up, he gave Zhang Ruoxi a strange look, wondering why Yang Kai was being accompanied by a young first-order Saint King girl. "Why are you waiting here for me?" Yang Kai asked, looking at the shop hand. The shop hand promptly replied, "It's like this. This humble one has been ordered by shopkeeper Kong to wait here for Alchemist Yang to invite him to the upcoming auction fair." Auction fair. Yang Kai raised his brow, soon recalling that Kong Si Ran had mentioned this to him a few days ago. He said that the cultivators of Maplewood City had found a lot of treasures in the 5-colored treasure pagoda. So City Lord Duan Yuan Shan had organized an auction fair to let everyone exchange for what they needed. It was just that Yang Kai's pockets were a little light at that time, so he didn't have much interest in it. As he hadn't expressed much interest in participating, he was surprised Kong Si Ran would send someone to invite him. "I've just obtained a lot of source crystals and treasures from the Liu family, so it should be fine to check it out." Having considered all this, Yang Kai asked, "What's so special about this auction fair? Why is shopkeeper Kong so interested?" The shop hand smiled mysteriously, glancing left and right before leaning in closer to Yang Kai and saying in a low voice, "Shopkeeper Kong said that a Dao source fruit will appear." "Really?" Yang Kai was astonished. "Indeed. That's why shopkeeper Kong is so keen about this auction, and also wants to ask Alchemist Yang to join him to gather funds and snatch the Dao source fruit together." "All right." Yang Kai nodded. In addition, shopkeeper Kong said that there is an ancient pill furnace among the items listed for auction, one that is at least of Dao source grade low rank. If Alchemist Yang can obtain this pill furnace, his refinement success rate will surely increase. This ancient pill furnace should be very attractive to all alchemists. "I am indeed interested in this." Yang Kai smiled. Where is this auction held and when will it start?" A smile appeared on the shop hand's face as he replied, "It will start at noon today. I have been waiting for Alchemist Yang for 2 days now. If Alchemist Yang had not just returned, he may have missed it. So, it seems that I came back just at the right time." "Good. Go back and inform shopkeeper Kong I will come to meet him right away." "Yes," the shop hand replied before promptly retreating. Although the two didn't speak loudly, Zhang Ruoxi, who was curiously watching things nearby, heard most of it. Waiting until the shop hand left, she asked Yang Kai curiously, "Sir, are you an alchemist?" Yang Kai smiled and replied, "I know a little something. Let's head in first." Saying so, Yang Kai activated the barrier of the secluded home and took Zhang Ruoxi inside. The secluded home that he had rented in Maplewood City might not be the best, but it wasn't bad either, having several rooms inside and being fairly spacious. Yang Kai gave a room to Zhang Ruoxi to live in for now. He also gave her an identity token and taught her how to activate and deactivate the protective barriers. He then warned her not to open the secluded home to anyone except him. Zhang Ruoxi nodded and agreed. "You can go out for a walk if you are bored. Security in Maplewood City is fairly good, but you must stay away from the black market as the City Lord's mansion cannot supervise that area. If you went there with your cultivation, it would be very dangerous," Yang Kai exhorted. "Ruoxi won't go anywhere. Ruoxi will be waiting for Sir's return," Zhang Ruoxi stated in a quiet voice. "As you wish. You can rest first, I will be going out for a bit," Yang Kai said before leaving straight away. Zhang Ruoxi bowed respectfully to his disappearing figure. After Yang Kai left, Zhang Ruoxi started looking around the secluded home and realized that although it was neat and clean, it was also quite barren and empty. Considering she would be living here from now on, she began thinking about how to redecorate. After taking some time to come up with a plan, Zhang Ruoxi smiled happily before immediately taking things out of her space ring and arranging them. Spirit Pill Plaza. When Yang Kai arrived, someone immediately informed Kong Si Ran. Not long after, Kong Si Ran came out and held Yang Kai's hands enthusiastically. "Alchemist Yang, you finally showed up. If you didn't appear, I'm afraid you would have missed this auction fair. Let's go. Time is running out. We need to arrive at the City Lord's mansion as soon as possible." "The auction fair is being held at the City Lord's mansion?" Yang Kai asked, astonished. "Naturally. After all, this auction fair is organized by Sir City Lord himself, so of course, the venue is the City Lord's mansion. I will tell you about the treasures that will appear on the way." While on his way to the City Lord's mansion with Kong Si Ran, Yang Kai listened to the inside information from him. As they walked, Yang Kai came to realize that although Maplewood City's cultivators had suffered serious casualties inside the five-colored treasure pagoda, many had also managed to obtain good treasures. Needless to say, the Dao source fruit would surely become the final item to be auctioned. There were also several Dao source grade artifacts, which had attracted many Dao source realm masters of nearby great forces to participate in the auction. Moreover, there were ancient pills, secret arts, and secret techniques. In short, this auction would be an unprecedented event for Maplewood City, and all cultivators were looking forward to it. However, there were some prerequisites to participating in the auction. After all, there were many cultivators in Maplewood City and not everyone could be accommodated into the City Lord's mansion. If one wanted to join the auction, other than being invited by the City Lord's mansion, only two kinds of people could enter freely: cultivators at or above the Origin King realm, or someone with strong financial backing. If a cultivator didn't meet either of these requirements, they weren't even allowed to enter the auction house. As the shopkeeper of the Spirit Pill Plaza, Kong Si Ran often dealt with the City Lord's mansion, so he had obtained an invitation long ago and was allowed to bring one person inside with him, meaning Yang Kai's cultivation and financial resources didn't need to be checked. Heavenly Martial Holy Land placed 3 Dao source fruits in the 5-colored treasure pagoda this time, one of which will appear in the auction. As for the other 2, no one knows who obtained them, Kong Si Ran said. He had always been eyeing the Dao source fruits and was quite annoyed that his luck wasn't good enough to obtain one inside the 5-colored treasure pagoda. Today, though, he had brought out his life savings to obtain this Dao source fruit. However, he knew that he had little to no hope of success. After all, while he was the shopkeeper of Spirit Pill Plaza, how could his financial resources be compared with those from big sects and families? If he were to attend the auction as a representative of Violet Source Chamber of Commerce, his situation would have been completely different, but using funds from Violet Source Chamber of Commerce would mean the Dao source fruit would ultimately not belong to him. Hearing what he said, Yang Kai scratched his nose and remained silent. After all, one of the Tao source fruits was still lying in his space ring. As for the third one, he had no idea about it. Chatting and walking, the two soon arrived at the City Lord's mansion. The City Lord's mansion entrance was bustling with people, many of them eager to enter while the guards were trying to maintain order. From time to time, people would try to push their way inside, but they would immediately be thrown out while being mocked and cursed. A mere third-order origin returning realm wants to participate in the auction? Go back and cultivate for a few more decades first. What, you have source crystals? Let me see, a few 100,000 source crystals? You call this having source crystals? Scram! Loud cursing could be heard coming from the front as some unqualified cultivators wanted to pass through but were caught by the guards and unceremoniously expelled. First-order origin king, you are barely qualified. A third-order Saint King like you wants to join in the fun? You think Father here won't slap you to death? What, you have 1,000,000 source crystals. Why didn't you say so? Go on in. The guards were also very busy. The auction was about to start, but there were still countless cultivators who wanted to enter, leading to many big headaches. Shopkeeper Kong. Kong Si ran and Yang Kai squeezed their way through the crowd to get to the City Lord's mansion's gates where the guards immediately recognized Kong Si ran and put a big smile on his face. Shopkeeper Kong, even if it is you, you must follow the rules. You have an invitation, right? Of course. Kong Si ran smiled as he took out the invitation before handing it over under the envious gazes of the nearby cultivators. The guard took it and after verifying its authenticity, he said with a smile, Shopkeeper Kong, please enter. You only need to show the invitation at the entrance and someone will come to greet you. Very good. Right, this Kong will be bringing this friend in with me. That's not a problem, right? Kan Si Ran pointed at Yang Kai. According to the rules, it's not a problem. That guard only glanced once at Yang Kai before letting him go. Kan Si Ran nodded before the pair left the crowd and made their way inside. Let's go. The auction is about to start. Kong Si Ran picked up his pace. Soon after, the two entered the City Lord's mansion and after Kong Si Ran showed his invitation, a maid promptly led them to a private room numbered B9. Kong Si Ran looked a little surprised by this number. After all, he could be regarded as someone famous in Maplewood City, and although his cultivation wasn't the strongest, with Violet Source Chamber of Commerce backing him, even City Lord Duan Yuan Shan dared not look down on him. But now, he had only been assigned to a private room in the B block, making it all the more evident that the people in the higher-ranked rooms either had higher strength or bigger backgrounds. Realizing this, Kong Si Ran frowned as a bad premonition came over him. The auction site was a large hall inside the City Lord's mansion that had been temporarily remodeled specifically for the occasion. The hall was jam-packed with people and with just a glance, Yang Kai estimated that there were at least thousands of people here and over 100 private rooms. What's more, there were many people who were still trying to enter. If not for Kong Si Ran's status, the two of them might not have even been able to squeeze inside. At this moment, the lower hall was bustling with noises and people as countless cultivators chatted with each other in small groups. Obviously, the auction had still not started. Only the 100 private rooms remained silent, and whenever a cultivator down below glanced upwards, gazes filled with envy. Please sit, Kong Si Ran said as he found a place for himself. Yang Kai also took a seat. In any case, he had participated in several auctions over the years, so despite this being his first one in the star boundary, everything still felt quite familiar to him. Yang Kai and Kong Si Ran took their seats and began chatting, but soon after, drums played and down in the auction hall. A short old man with white hair and beard jumped onto the auction platform all of a sudden. This man's appearance was quite eye-catching. He wore loose and baggy clothes, his hair was unkempt, and he had the red nose of a drunk. On his waist there was a big green wine gourd. At first glance, everyone would think of him as a beggar from the streets. As soon as the old man stepped on the stage, he let out a hearty laugh, lifted the big gourd on his waist like there was no one watching, removed the cork, and poured a strong-smelling wine straight down his throat. After a few loud gulps, he actually gave a loud burp and narrowed his eyes slightly in satisfaction. He looked as if he would have no regrets even if he ended up dying right this moment. The smell of wine quickly permeated through the hall. Yang Kai was dumbstruck at this sight, his eyes looking as if they were ready to pop out at any moment. He had participated in several auctions in his native star field, but in every one of those, the host had either been a sophisticated or seductive woman, or a scholarly well-kept man. He had never seen a host as unique as this old man on the high platform. Alchemist Yang, you only arrived in Maplewood City recently, so it's not a surprise you don't know him. Kang Si-ran broke into a fit of laughter, and before Yang Kai could ask anything, he explained. He is one of the 2 vice city lords of Maplewood City. No one knows his exact name, but since he calls himself Drunkard, everyone else does as well. He's one of the 2 vice city lords? Wouldn't that make him a Dao Source Realm Master? Yang Kai was extremely shocked. Yes, he is a first-order Dao Source Realm cultivator, but as for his specific strengths, that's unknown. Rumor has it that his true strength isn't much worse than that of City Lord Duan's, and he is actually capable of fighting cultivators above his realm, Kang Si-ran said. Yang Kai nodded his acknowledgement as he asked with a smile, "Is it okay to let him preside over the auction? I think he's already drunk." To that, Kang Si-ran just smiled and said, "Don't judge him by his appearance. Drunkard has a very prestigious reputation in Maplewood City, beating up ruffians and helping the downtrodden, being generous and kind to the poor. He is a good man." Yang Kai nodded. If that's the case, then there should be no problem. At that moment, Drunkard seemed to be reminiscing about the taste of his wine. But after a moment, he returned to his senses, glanced around and cupped his fist. "I believe all our honored guests recognize this old man already. And it doesn't matter if you don't recognize me either. This old man isn't here to make friends, but to host an auction anyways, so don't stare at this old man. Just focus on the auction items." Just as he said this, many cultivators in the hall broke into laughter. Yang Kai also found him quite interesting. This old man didn't seem to have the slightest aloofness and arrogance a Dao Source Master should have, but was instead calm and carefree. Good, this old man despises troublesome things, so obviously this old man didn't want to host this auction. But Sir City Lord suddenly came out and offered me some good wine, getting me to agree to this while I was drunk. Sir City Lord is really too sinister. Damn it all. Anyway, this old man is in a hurry, so act decisively during the auction because this old man won't wait. He has to go out and bask in the sun as soon as possible, Drunkard quickly said as he walked up to the dais. Hearing what he said, many people put on serious expressions. Good, enough nonsense, let the auction begin, Drunkard said in a low voice as he gestured towards the back. A maid of the city lord's mansion immediately came out from backstage, carrying a jade plate. On this jade plate was a white porcelain bottle. From the looks of it, the first item going to be auctioned today was a pill. Soul condensing pills, an ancient lost pill, 3 pills in total to be auctioned off together. The starting bid is 30,000 source crystals, and each raise should not be less than 1,000 source crystals. Begin. Finished with the introduction, Drunkard stood in place silently. Soul condensing pill, it's really a soul condensing pill? If soul condensing pills are being auctioned first, just what kind of treasures will appear next? It's said that taking a soul condensing pill can temper one's soul, making their spiritual energy and divine sense stronger. I wonder if it's true or not. This is an Origin King grade high rank pill. It can't be refined by any of Maplewood City's alchemists under normal circumstances. After hearing the words soul condensing pill, all the cultivators present instantly became enthusiastic. After all, it was difficult to increase the strength of one's soul, and a powerful divine sense was useful for many things, including searching, concealment, and even direct confrontations. These soul condensing pills were useful to all cultivators. 31,000, 32,000, 35,000. The bids kept rising in the hall, one after another, and even some from the private rooms participated. Not long after, the bottle of soul-condensing pills broke through the 50,000 source crystals mark. It wasn't until someone called out 60,000 source crystals that the hall temporarily turned calm. 60,000 going once, going twice, going thrice, and sold. This bottle of soul-condensing pill is sold to the friend who just made the bid. Please take your source crystals and go backstage to claim your item. Now, let's move on to the next item. Drunkard, who had been standing on the high platform with his eyes closed the deal all of a sudden and moved on to the next item without giving others even a chance to react. This? So fast. Is this an auction or selling by compulsion? Senior Drunkard's conduct is really too much. An uproar immediately broke out in the hall, with many objecting. Obviously, no cultivator had experienced such an auction before. Normally, auction hosts would ask again and again for higher bids, like they feared selling the item at lower than the deserved price. But Drunkard didn't seem to care about it at all. It really seemed like he wanted to end the auction as early as possible and then go to sleep under the sun. For a moment, the cultivators who had been hesitating on whether to increase the bid or not just now were extremely annoyed, while on the other hand, the man who made the last bid of 60,000 got up from his seat with a face filled with joy at having picked up a bargain and immediately rushed to the backstage to finalize the deal. After having come to learn about Drunkard's impatient style, every cultivator bid passionately during the subsequent auctions. When they found something they wanted, they didn't hesitate, and the rate of bids coming in only grew faster and faster. Everyone was afraid that Drunkard would call the winner before they managed to call their bid. This way, the auction suddenly progressed extremely quickly, and in less than half an hour, more than 40 items had been auctioned off. This was completely the opposite of all auctions Xianxia had participated in before. Pills, artifacts, secret arts, secret techniques, all appeared one by one. Some of these were put up for auctions by cultivators themselves from their personal or family collections, but most items originated from the 5-colored treasure pagoda. These relics of the ancient battlefield naturally caused a lot of people to vie for them, making the atmosphere of the entire auction site extremely hot. Xianxia also gained a rough understanding of the market prices of the items sold. An ordinary Dao source-grade artifact apparently cost between 700,000 to 800,000 source crystals, and if its grade was slightly higher, then the price reaching 1 million to several millions was pretty normal. Originally, Xianxia felt that with 1 million source crystals he was sufficiently wealthy, but now he realized he was still quite poor. Dao source-grade low-rank tiger battle armor 1.8 million, going once, going twice, going thrice, and sold. Friend, please take your source crystals backstage to claim your item. Let's move on to the next item. Drunkard, having finished speaking, continued moving things along. From backstage, a maidservant walked out, carrying a mysterious auction item on a jade tray which was covered by a red cloth. The audience could not see this item's true appearance and could only tell it was about the size of a melon. When the maid came closer, Drunkard suddenly grinned as he looked out at the audience meaningfully. This item is extremely precious and would normally have been auctioned as the finale, but is being auctioned in advance under this old man's strong suggestion. Presumably, many people here can guess what it is. Now then, let's begin. Saying so, he lifted the red cloth on the jade plate, revealing its true appearance to everyone. It was a small furnace that seemed to fit in one's hand. This furnace had a black luster to it and had many dragons and phoenixes carved into its surface, giving it an extraordinary appearance while an ancient and desolate aura permeated it. Drunkard picked up the furnace with one hand and said with a laugh, "This black jade furnace has been studied for many days by this old man and Sir City Lord, but we cannot tell what material it is refined from. We were only able to determine it is an alchemy furnace, and a Dao source-grade mid-rank one at that." A Dao source-grade mid-rank alchemy furnace. The audience in the hall cried out in shock. Many priceless treasures and artifacts had appeared in the auction thus far, but only a few were Dao source-grade mid-rank. More importantly, this was an alchemy furnace, a treasure all alchemists would fight desperately over. Alchemists were extremely wealthy, but they wouldn't hesitate to spend enormous amounts of money on a good alchemy furnace. What's more, big sects and families always cultivated their own alchemists, so this Dao source-grade mid-rank alchemy furnace would definitely make them excited. With a good alchemy furnace, alchemists could not only improve their chances of successfully refining pills, but also improve the quality of their pills, so the value of high-grade alchemy furnaces could be imagined. Even Xianxia, who had not bid on anything during the auction, couldn't help his eyes from flashing when he saw this alchemy furnace, immediately sending out his divine sense to the stage to scan it carefully. Many people were doing the same as him, so numerous powerful divine senses quickly surged forth and covered the stage, making for a lively scene. Is Alchemist Yang interested in this alchemy furnace? Kong Si Ran asked with a slight smile as he was paying attention to Yang Kai's every word and expression. I am somewhat, but... Yang Kai wryly smiled and shook his head. I probably can't snatch it. Kong Si Ran thought for a moment before saying, how would you know whether you can win it or not if you don't try? Alchemist Yang, please don't hesitate. If you are lacking in source crystals, this Kong can lend them to you. Let's wait and watch first. Yang Kai remained non-committal. He knew that Kong Si Ran had brought a lot of source crystals to this auction, but those were for the Dao source fruit. If Kong Si Ran couldn't obtain the Dao source fruit because of him, Yang Kai would feel troubled. While he wanted this alchemy furnace, it wasn't a necessity. Have you all taken a good look? Good, this old man might not be an alchemist, but because the secret art I cultivate is fire attributed, I can also bring out a bit of this alchemy furnace's power. And let this old man demonstrate the features of this thing. Finished with his explanation, Drunkard tossed the black jade furnace he had been holding up in the air and quickly formed a few seals. Pouring his pure source chi into the black jade furnace, it rapidly began to expand and soon became as tall as a person before falling heavily on the auction stage with a grand thump. After the alchemy furnace expanded, the complex patterns on its surface became clearer. Not only that, everyone was now able to see the inside of the alchemy furnace with their divine senses. Engraved inside were 4 dazzling, burning dragon heads. The Grandmaster who refined this furnace was definitely a genius who carved countless spirit arrays into it, all of which are good auxiliaries for alchemy. As a result, as long as one understands what these spirit arrays are for, they would not need to portray them themselves during alchemy, saving time and energy. Furthermore, the 4 dragon heads inside the alchemy furnace allow an alchemist to have better control over the heat, as well as providing another interesting feature. Saying so, Drunkard suddenly lifted his gourd and took a swig of his wine, causing his ruddy face to immediately become even redder. He then patted his chest and opened his mouth towards the black jade furnace in a spitting motion. A fire dragon flew out of his mouth in the next instant. One that soared forward, shaking its head and wagging its tail before crashing into the black jade furnace and sinking into it like a stone falling into an ocean, disappearing from everyone's sight. Drunkard immediately formed another set of seals with a mysterious smile hanging on his lips. Suddenly, a raging flame spurted out of one of the dragon heads inside the furnace. The flame seemed to be extremely hot and was blue in color. Next, under Drunkard's control, the flames grew more intense, then less. A second dragon head also began spewing flames before the third, then finally the fourth. Drunkard then withdrew his hands and stood to the side, motionless. However, the flames inside the furnace didn't go out, but instead continued to burn. From the looks of it, it would be some time before these flames went out. The alchemy furnace can even store flames? A knowledgeable person quickly saw through the situation and commented. Precisely. Friend, you have sharp vision? Drunkard broke into laughter. This old man didn't even use much strength, only about as much as a normal attack. But that was enough to provide enough energy to this furnace to burn for half a day. On top of that, once the flame intensity is set, it will absolutely not change until its energy supply is exhausted or the alchemist alters it. Presumably, everyone understands how great an aid this would provide to an alchemist. Yes. Just as Drunkard's voice fell, everyone in the hall immediately broke into a clamor. He might not have explained clearly, but all the cultivators present understood how precious this alchemy furnace was. When an alchemist was refining pills, he would often need to add various herbs and portray different spirit arrays, all while carefully controlling the heat by providing just the right amount of energy, making it a process that required extreme focus and precise control. However, with this black jade furnace, the situation was completely different. An alchemist would only need to set the appropriate temperature and pour in sufficient energy to maintain it for the required period of time. allowing the alchemy furnace to remain in that exact state for an extended period without outside intervention. The alchemist could take advantage of this time to restore himself. Many times, alchemists would fail their refining not because of some mistake in their methods, but because of their physical or spiritual limits. But with this black jade furnace, there wasn't any need to worry about this problem at all. In addition to the various abilities of an ordinary alchemy furnace, it also had its own unique auxiliary features. On top of all that, it was of Dao source grade mid-rank, making it an extremely valuable to begin with. In the eyes of alchemists, this alchemy furnace was no less valuable than an emperor artifact. Time is limited, so this old man will not show the other features of this alchemy furnace, but this old man can guarantee that if any alchemist can obtain it, their grade will increase by 1 whole rank. Everyone couldn't help but gasp and marvel when they heard this. An alchemist's rank was much harder to raise than a cultivator's realm, especially when it came to great realms. Many alchemists would become stuck at the Origin King grade high rank, unable to make further progress for the rest of their lives. But if what Drunkard said was true, an Origin King grade alchemist had a chance to refine Dao source grade pills as long as they had the black jade furnace, and the chances of success wouldn't be low. All these features and benefits not only made the alchemists present on the scene unable to hold themselves back, but also made the representatives of the various sects and families become enthusiastic. Dao source grade mid-rank alchemy furnace, black jade furnace, starting bid, 1 million source crystals. Each subsequent bid must increase the price no less than 50,000. Everyone, please. Drunkard shouted as he stepped aside, chuckling. Starting price, 1 million. The corner of Yang Kai's mouth couldn't help but twitch upon hearing this. After listening to Drunkard's extravagant and colorful description, he was naturally a little tempted to bid on this black jade furnace. The alchemy furnace currently had was the purple origin furnace he obtained in the Emperor Garden many years ago. As an Origin King grade high-rank furnace, its grade wasn't low, and had served him well over the years, but it wasn't on the same level as the black jade furnace here. However, a starting price of 1 million source crystals made Yang Kai smile wryly. The source crystals he had on hand totaled just about 1 million, which was barely enough to match the starting bid. Is this black jade furnace really so marvelous? The nearby Xianxia also seemed surprised. Although he was able to obtain some information in advance by relying on his connections with the city lord's mansion, he obviously didn't know the details of this black jade furnace beforehand, so when he heard Drunkard's introduction, his expression couldn't help but become solemn. If he could obtain this alchemy furnace, the pill output of his spirit pill plaza would definitely increase significantly, which would in turn increase his value as a shopkeeper. Perhaps he could even be rewarded with a promotion from the Chamber of Commerce. However, when he thought about the Dao source fruit at the finale, Xianxia hesitated. He turned to glance at Yang Kai, and when he saw the wry smile on his face, he asked curiously, "Alchemist Yang, are you not going to bid?" "No. I'll just watch the excitement." Yang Kai shook his head. Xianxia immediately understood and nodded in acknowledgement, remaining silent. The auction had already begun as the two were speaking, but strangely, no one called a bid. The hall was completely silent as, obviously, everyone was waiting for someone else to make the first move. For a while, the atmosphere in the auction house became tense. If someone else had been hosting this auction, they would not show any signs of anxiety and would instead just wait confidently. After all, such a good treasure would naturally sell for a high price. However, this time Drunkard was hosting the auction. After waiting for only a brief time and seeing no one bid, Drunkard couldn't help grinning and calling out, "It seems this will be the first item today to not be auctioned off. Good, since that's the case." "Wait, Sir Vice City Lord, aren't you being too impatient?" A man shouted out from one of the private rooms. "Nobody's bidding though? If no one bids, this old man will simply buy it himself. Maybe he can sell it later and make a big profit." Drunkard looked toward the speaker, smiling. Hearing him say this, many people couldn't help but roll their eyes at him. The host of the auction actually wanted to participate in the auction. It was completely unheard of. Only someone like Drunkard could act so brazen. "Well, since all my friends are being so reserved, then this one will offer 1 million to get the ball rolling." The man in the private room helplessly said, 1 million is far too low. My Du family bids 1.5 million for this black jade furnace. You dare think 1.5 million is enough? Ridiculous. My Jiang family bids 1.8 million. After the first bid, another rapidly came in, then another and another. Moreover, each of these bidders represented some powerful family or sect, but that made sense as only such forces could afford to spend so many source crystals. All of a sudden, the private rooms all began enthusiastically participating in the bidding, causing Drunkard to grin meaningfully at the sight while lifting his gourd to drink from it complacently. The big families inside Maplewood City naturally had friction between them, and now that this black jade furnace had appeared and was clearly capable of improving their respective strength, none of them wanted to let it go. In just 30 breaths, the price of the black jade furnace had reached 2.7 million and was rapidly increasing with no one willing to give up. After another half a cup of tea's time, the black jade furnaces reached 4 million and only then did several of the families stop bidding. Obviously, the current price had exceeded their limits. Although this black jade furnace was a good treasure, the Dao source fruit which could help a cultivator reach the Dao source realm directly was more valuable, so many people could only reluctantly give up in light of this. At this moment, Yang Kai had completely become a spectator. The black jade furnace had soared past the price he could afford, so he had long ago given up. My Jiang family needs this black jade furnace. Please give us some face. For 0.1 million. An angry voice suddenly reverberated from the Jiang family's private room. Others truly fell silent as many didn't dare to continue to compete with the Jiang family. After all, the Jiang family was one of the strongest in Maplewood City, so it was unwise to offend them while also having to pay out a huge amount of source crystals. Seeing this, the speaker from the Jiang family called out in an overjoyed voice, "Sir Vice City Lord, if you could." But before he could finish, a coquettish voice suddenly sounded, "Uncle Jiang, don't be so anxious. Little sister still hasn't called her bid. I offer 4.2 million. As soon as these words rang out, a man with thick eyebrows and sharp eyes inside the Jiang family private room turned to the source of the sound and snapped, "Shopkeeper Zhua?" At this moment, Kang Si Ran also let out a cold snort. Zhuaning Si. That slut really couldn't help herself. As rivals, Kang Si Ran naturally knew that the owner of the sultry voice was the shopkeeper of the Pill Pavilion, Zhuaning Si, who had recently poached all his alchemists from him. Yang Kai also had some dealings with Zhuaning Si. Specifically on the day he went to Spirit Pill Plaza and signed a soul contract with Kang Si Ran. At that time, Zhou Si wanted to poach him for her pill pavilion, but he refused. As such, Yang Kai naturally had an impression of this charming woman. Her decision to bid for the black jade furnace was understandable. After all, she was the shopkeeper of Pill Pavilion, so buying the black jade furnace would be of great use to her. Kang Si Ran, hearing Zhou Si's bid, instantly grew angry. It seemed that he had recalled the various injustices he had to go through over the past few months, and that fueled his rage. On the other side, the man with the thick eyebrows inside the Jiang family, distinguishing Zhuaning Si's identity, furrowed his brow and said, "Shopkeeper Zhua, my Jiang family and your pavilion enjoy a cooperative relationship and have some friendship with one another. Is this really necessary?" Zhou Si chuckled and said, "Uncle Jiang, while you're right, friendship is friendship and business is business. Little sister is just itching to get her hands on this treasure, so naturally she has to offer a bid. Uncle Jiang, how about you be the magnanimous one and give this black jade furnace to little sister? Little sister will definitely host a banquet tonight to entertain Uncle Jiang in return for his favor. Hehe. I just don't know whether you have the stamina to attend." She was blatantly seducing the Jiang family master in front of thousands of cultivators. Many cultivators in the hall snorted contemptuously upon hearing this. Slut! Kang Si Ran was also filled with righteous indignation as he despised Zhuaning Si's debauchery. Inside the Jiang family private room, the man with the thick eyebrows snorted coldly but remained unmoved and said indifferently, "Is shopkeeper Zhou insistent on opposing my Jiang family? Oh, how could I dare? After this incident, little sister will personally come to the Jiang family to apologize. But still, little sister can't give up on this black jade furnace." Zhou Si declared loudly, as if she was inhumanely wronged. Her voice was filled with grief at the injustice she suffered. Everyone couldn't help feeling some pity for her upon hearing this. But they also realized her last words were filled with determination, as if she was on a crusade that was simply unavoidable. The Jiang family man let out a cold snort and snapped, "In that case, let's see who wins in the end. For 0.3 million. Zhou Ningxi smiled and continued, without flinching for even a moment. For 0.4 million. Before the Jiang family could raise the bid, another voice called out from a different private room. For 0.5 million. The Jiang family's man was stunned, and Zhou Ningxi too was taken aback, while Yang Kai, who was sitting in room B9, turned to Kong Si Ran in amazement and asked skeptically, "Shopkeeper Kong, are you?" It was actually Kong Si Ran who had called the bid just now, joining the race for the furnace. Kong Si Ran smiled and said, "I'm just making some trouble for that slut." Yang Kai nodded in understanding. "I was wondering who was poking his nose into my business. So it is Shopkeeper Kong. N. So you were still alive, you old fogey?" Zhuaning Si spoke with obvious ridicule. Kong Si Ran broke out into laughter and replied, "Many thanks, Shopkeeper Zhou. I'm very much alive and well. So, it is Shopkeeper Kong." Obviously, the Jiang family master heard Kong Si Ran's voice and recognized it, laughing as he commented, "Since your two chambers of commerce are interested in this alchemy furnace, my Jiang family will withdraw. After all, we are not an opponent of your two forces." Apparently, he mistakenly believed that Zhuaning and Kong Si Ran were bidding on behalf of the chambers of commerce behind them, so he immediately and swiftly retreated. He could afford to offend Zhuaning for the Black Jade Furnace, but offending both major chambers of commerce together was not an option for the Jiang family. What he didn't know was that Kong Si Ran was just bidding maliciously, while it was uncertain whether Zhuaning was representing Seven Glories Chamber of Commerce. Many thanks. When Kong Si Ran saw him misunderstand, he didn't try to explain himself and just cupped his fists instead. Zhuaning quickly cut in, "Shopkeeper Kong, now only you and I remain. I wonder what Shopkeeper Kang's bottom line is. No comment, just make your bid. If you don't, this Black Jade Furnace will belong to this old master." Kong Si Ran let out a cold snort. Zhou Ningxi, having met with gruff rebuff, became annoyed and stopped trying to talk to Kong Si Ran, instead just bidding again. For a time, only these two competed for the Black Jade Furnace, each of them raising the price by 100,000, soon bringing it to 5 million. Only at this moment did a meaningful grin appear on Kong Si Ran's lips as he generously said, "Shopkeeper Zhua, seeing you persist like this old master has no choice but to relent. And this old master will withdraw here. Damn old ghost." From Zhuaning room, the sound of cursing and grinding teeth could be heard. Although her voice wasn't loud, many could still hear her clearly. Kong Si Ran broke out into laughter with a look of satisfaction on his face. Atop the stage, drunkards smiled at the sight of this, taking a step forward to announce the winner of the Black Jade Furnace when suddenly, a male voice resounded from a private room in the A block. "You're finished, right? If both of you are done, then 6 million. As soon as this bid was called out, the entire auction hall fell silent, while even drunkard paused in place, turning to the source of the sound in astonishment. Zhuaning, who thought that she finally obtained victory, had her pupils shrink sharply as her pretty face distorted in anger. 6 million? Did I hear that right? Who is this guy? He raised the bid by 1 million source crystals. Is he crazy? Shoo! Keep your voice down. Whoever he is, he's sitting in the A block, so he must be a Dao Source Realm Master. If he hears you, you're dead. So what if he's a Dao Source Master? Do source crystals not mean anything to him? 1 million, if they were given to me. After a moment of silence, the hall broke out into an uproar, with all the cultivators whispering amongst themselves. After all, it was truly frightening for someone to increase the price by 1 million source crystals all at once. After giving it a bit of thought, Drunkard seemed to have realized the identity of the bidder, and a trace of fear flashed across his eyes before he stepped back and stood quietly in place. Inside her private room, Zhou Ningxi's mood couldn't be worse. After all, she had the fruit of victory snatched by some troublemaker at the last moment. No one would be in a good mood after encountering such a thing. While she was just a third-order origin king, she still represented 7 Glories Chamber of Commerce, so after a moment of silence, she asked in a cold voice, "Dare I ask what your excellency's honored name is?" The bidder in the A block's room didn't seem to have any intention to answer her. Xianxia was annoyed and snapped, "Showing the tail but hiding the head. Your excellency, don't you dare to reveal your name?" After she said this, the bidder finally sneered. "What a farce. This one is only participating in the auction according to its rules. What's wrong? Do I have to report my name before I call a bid? What kind of auction house has such rules? Vice City Lord, does your Maplewood City's auction house have this custom?" His last question was addressed to Drunkard. Drunkard furrowed his brow, but after pausing for a moment, he cupped his fists and said, "Friend, you must be joking. Maplewood City's auctions don't have such a rule." "Good. Shopkeeper Joie, I will let this offense go this time because you belong to 7 Glories of Chamber of Commerce. But if you dare use such an arrogant tone with me again, don't blame me for being ruthless." A vast and intense divine sense suddenly spread from the A-block private room and assailed Xianxia at that moment. Xianxia couldn't help but turn pale as she immediately realized that this man did not care at all about her identity or status, and that if she kept pestering him, he might really get annoyed and act against her. And judging by the strength of this divine sense, the other party didn't seem to be just a first-order Dao Source Realm Master, but rather a second-order Dao Source Realm Master. Maplewood City's Lord, Duan Yuan Shan, was a second-order Dao Source Realm Master and was an overlord in the surrounding 100,000-kilometer region. So who knew where this man who was on par with him suddenly appeared from? Even if Xianxia had the backing of the 7 Glories Chamber of Commerce, with this man's strength, killing Xianxia silently wouldn't be any trouble. After realizing this, Xianxia quickly backed down, squeezed out a smile and said, "Since Senior is interested in this black jade furnace, then this mistress will withdraw. Congratulations, Senior." Let alone the fact that 6 million source crystals had already exceeded Xianxia's bottom line. This man was a master she could not afford to offend. If she competed with him, she would be the only one to suffer. Understanding this, Xianxia judged it best to offer some polite words and retreat. No one had expected that the Black Jade Furnace, which was fought for by so many sects and families, would eventually fall into the hands of a mysterious person who only offered one bid. After Drunkard came to the front of the stage and called for other bids thrice, the ownership of the Black Jade Furnace was settled. How surprising! I didn't expect that the Black Jade Furnace itself would go for 6 million. There's even the Dao Source Fruit still left to auction off. Kang Si Ran said with some depression in his voice. Although he had brought a lot of source crystals this time, seeing the intensity of the previous bidding, the Dao Source Fruit would probably have nothing to do with him, so he couldn't help feeling frustrated. Yang Kai also had no idea how to comfort him, so he just maintained his silence. The next item auctioned was a spirit pill. Atop the stage, Drunkard put on a meaningful grin and said, "Regarding this spirit pill, please let this old man explain a little bit." While he was introducing the item, a maid had already arrived with a display tray. After he lifted the red cloth covering the item, everyone immediately saw a navy blue, Longan-sized spirit pill lying quietly on the jade place. This spirit pill wasn't inside a jade bottle, as if the auctioneer wasn't worried about the medicinal efficacies dissipating from improper storage. When a sharp-eyed cultivator saw the spirit pill, he immediately cried out in shock, "Pill veins! This spirit pill actually formed pill veins." "What? Let me see. You're right, it's really pill veins. So, pill veins look like this. It's not just that. Take a good look. The spirit pill seems to be quite aged. Wouldn't that mean?" Many cultivators started discussing the pill while Drunkard was all smiles, looking extremely satisfied with the effects of his actions. Although some spirit pills had appeared already during the auction, no spirit pill had formed pill veins. This was the first. Furthermore, many cultivators had never even seen a spirit pill with pill veins, so everyone found it extremely marvelous and kept gawking at it. "Sir Vice City Lord, may I ask if this spirit pill came from the 5-colored treasure pagoda?" Someone among the audience asked aloud. Drunkard nodded and replied, smiling. Exactly. And this spirit pill isn't one placed inside by the major sects just after it opened. It is a true ancient spirit pill. Everyone can also see that the medicinal efficacy of this spirit pill had been perfectly preserved because of the pill veins. If this was not the case, even the most potent of spirit pills would have been reduced to ashes after so many years. After a spirit pill had been refined, it would be stored in a jade bottle to preserve its medicinal efficacy. But even high-grade spirit pills would have their medicinal efficacy dissipate with time, becoming useless eventually. But if the spirit pill formed pill veins, there was no need to worry about this issue. Pill veins could absorb world energy autonomously, thereby maintaining the pill's medicinal efficacy. Pill clouds, which were above pill veins, were even more remarkable. Spirit pills with pill clouds would have their medicinal efficacy grow stronger over time. The longer such a pill was preserved, the more terrifying its medicinal efficacy would become. If an Origin King grade pill formed pill clouds, its medicinal efficacy might even be comparable to an Emperor grade pill after thousands of years of accumulation. Xianxia had even seen such a pill before. When he obtained the purple Origin furnace in the Emperor Garden, there was a purple veins dragon flame pill that formed pill clouds inside. This pill was refined by the owner of the true alchemy enlightenment scripture, and only the heavens knew why it was still in the purple Origin furnace. Ultimately, Xianxia had picked up a bargain when he obtained it. The Emperor Garden had been sealed off for over 10,000 years, so this purple veins dragon flame pill was nourished by its pill clouds for an equal length of time. As such, even though it was only an Origin King grade mid-rank pill, even an ordinary Emperor grade pill could not compete with it in terms of medicinal efficacy. Such a pill was extremely useful even to Emperor realm masters. This was the reason why Xianxia didn't dare to take it. He was worried its medicinal efficacy was too powerful and he could not withstand it. He dared not make its existence public either, as such a pill was extremely unique. There could be no more than 10 such pills in the entire world, so one could imagine just how valuable it was. Even with his current strength, Xianxia didn't dare to take this purple veins dragon flame pill easily and could only wait for his strength to improve until he could withstand its potency. Sir Vice City Lord, what is the grade of this spirit pill? What are its uses? A cultivator on the lower floor asked the question that was running through everyone's mind. Drunkard smiled and replied, "You don't have to ask." This old man was about to explain. After many alchemists studied this pill together for several days, they finally came to the conclusion that this spirit pill is a Tao source grade mid-rank pill, and its function is very attractive. Having heard Drunkard's reply, the cultivators in the auction hall suddenly grew energetic and looked up at the stage with rapt attention. What the exact name of this pill in ancient times was, no one knows for sure, and its pill recipe has long been lost. Sir City Lord decided to name it the marrow washing pill, and as for its specific purpose, you can tell it by its name. It can wash one's marrow and cleanse their physique, allowing one to be reborn and thereby enhancing that cultivator's aptitude. Just as Drunkard's voice fell, many cultivators in the audience suddenly exclaimed, all of their gazes turning sharp and hot. Even the masters in the various private rooms released their divine senses to investigate this spirit pill. It was no surprise everyone showed such a reaction, though. After all, how rare and valuable was a spirit pill that could wash one's marrow and cleanse one's physique to increase one's aptitude. Besides a few legendary pills and treasures, no such pill existed in the star boundary. But this marrow-washing pill indeed had such a heaven-defying effect. Who would dislike having better aptitude? This was something all cultivators dreamed of. Why were some third-order Origin Kings unable to break through to the Tao Source realm? Some might be unable to because of their secret art or due to old injuries or some other reason. But the most common reason by a large margin was simply because their aptitude was insufficient. If they could improve their aptitude just a little bit, they might be able to remold themselves and reach the Tao Source realm. And the marrow-washing pill before them obviously represented hope for such a future. So everyone coveted it. No, something's wrong. Isn't it, Sir Vice City Lord? A man's voice suddenly spread from a private room. It was the Jiang family master who had bid many times before. If this pill really had such a magical effect, How could anyone be willing to put it up for auction instead of just taking it for themselves? This Jiang does not believe that any cultivator with even the slightest bit of brains would make such a decision. Sir Vice City Lord, there's more to this pill than that, isn't there? Hearing this, those coveting cultivators with fiery eyes were instantly shocked as they felt that the Jiang family master made a lot of sense. If this marrow-washing pill really had such amazing effects, which fool would put it up for auction? It could even be said that City Lord Duan Yuanshan would immediately have taken it upon learning of its effects. Just now, Drunkard's elaborate description had made everyone subconsciously ignore this concern. But now that they were reminded by the Jiang family master, they immediately woke up and asked Drunkard to give a clear explanation. Drunkard, looking at the Jiang family private room, grinned meaningfully and said, "Brother Jiang is correct. Although this marrow-washing pill has a heaven-defying effect, it does have some drawbacks as well." "Oh? I'd like to hear the details," the Jiang family master immediately asked. "First, although this pill is able to wash one's marrow and cleanse one's physique, it can only be taken for cultivators at or below the Saint King realm, becoming completely ineffective to those above the Saint King realm. Secondly, the effects will only last until its user has cultivated to the Origin King realm. Once the consumer breaks through to the Origin King realm, their physique and aptitude will return to their previous level. Of course, except for these 2 points, this pill has no other side effects and will not have any harmful after effects. Of this everyone may rest assured. There's actually such a strange pill in this world? The Jiang family master was taken aback for a while. A smile appeared on Drunkard's lips as he said, "No one knows what the ancient world was like. This old man has no idea why this kind of pill was created in ancient times. But there are so many capable and eccentric people in history, so it's not surprising that such a pill appeared. This Jiang understands. Many thanks, Sir Vice City Lord, for your explanation. Good. This is what this old man ought to explain. Now that everyone has understood the purpose of this marrow-washing pill, let's start with the auction. The starting bid is 100,000 source crystals, and each raise shall not be less than 5,000. 100,000. 150,000. 200,000. Although this marrow-washing pill had many limitations, like being useless to cultivators above the Saint King realm and having the boosted aptitude return to its original level after breaking through to the Origin King realm, it still aroused the interest of many people. This was only natural as all the cultivators participating in the auction had their own juniors and heirs. This pill might be useless to them personally, but it could still be given to their descendants. There was a massive gap of 2 great realms between the Saint King realm and Origin King realm, so if one's aptitude was improved even for that short span, it could greatly shorten their cultivation time. However, its various restrictions doomed this pill to not have too high a price. The bids soared upwards, quickly breaking through the 200,000 mark. In the B9 private room, Yang Kai's brow rose as he too began bidding. Kong Si Ran looked at him with amazement and asked, "Alchemist Yang, do you have a little friend in need of this thing?" Yang Kai, pondering for a moment before nodding. "You could say that. Furthermore, since I have come to this auction, I can't just go back empty-handed, can I?" I suppose so," Kong Si Ran nodded. He had also bid on a few useful items before that were relatively cheap, but this was actually Yang Kai's first time bidding for anything. "Alchemist Yang, don't hesitate to bid. If you don't have enough source crystals, this old master will assist you," Kong Si Ran generously said. "Then I will thank shopkeeper Kong in advance." Yang Kai smiled and continued to raise. 250,000. The reason why he participated in bidding for this marrow-washing pill was naturally because of Zhang Ruoxi. This Zhang family young lady just so happened to be a first-order Saint King and was a prime candidate for taking this marrow-washing pill. He might have no friendship or feelings for this little girl, but he still wanted her help to unlock the secrets of the space spirit jade at the end of the day. Perhaps he would be with Zhang Ruoxi for a long time in the future, so it wouldn't hurt him to help her grow up quickly. It would also lighten the burden on him if she was stronger. Most importantly, though, Yang Kai had accepted her while having such plans for her which he had not revealed from the outset, so he felt that giving her a little compensation would relieve the guilt in his heart. As the price soared, fewer and fewer people participated in the bidding, as even though it was a rare ancient spirit pill, it was useless to them. Except for some cultivators who were interested in cultivating their descendants, others had already withdrawn. When Yang Kai offered 300,000, only a single woman continued to compete with him. This woman was sitting in the lower hall and didn't seem to be too wealthy. She was also only a second-order origin king. She hesitated for a while before continuing to increase the price. Naturally, Yang Kai did not give up. After Yang Kai called out 320,000, the woman let out a sigh and seemed to have given up. Seeing this situation, Drunkard immediately stepped forward and declared, 320,000 going once, going twice, going 3 times and sold. Please go backstage to pay and finalize the deal. Yang Kai smiled upon hearing this before promptly standing up and saying to Kang Si Ran, I'll be right back. Alchemist Yang, please return as soon as possible. If I'm right, the Dao source fruit is about to appear. Kang Si Ran looked towards the stage with great expectation. Yang Kai nodded and left the room. Walking backstage, he paid 320,000 source crystals and obtained the marrow washing pill. Spending so many source crystals to buy a spirit pill was indeed a little extravagant for Yang Kai today. After all, this was almost a third of the source crystals he had on hand, and more importantly, it was useless for him. But in the long run, it was fine. Furthermore, Yang Kai could also study the ingredients of this marrow washing pill himself, and if he could derive its recipe, it would be of great use to him. Regardless of anything else, this was an ancient spirit pill that had been lost to history. So if Yang Kai could learn its pill recipe, he could refine more in the future and sell them himself. At that time, he wouldn't need to worry about making back his investment. When Yang Kai returned to the private room again, it seemed that another item had been auctioned off for some unknown price. They still haven't reached the finale. The Dao source fruit? Yang Kai asked in astonishment as he took his seat. Kang Si Ran shook his head, smiling wryly. There seems to be a lot of items to be auctioned this time, but it should appear soon. Yang Kai nodded and didn't make a comment, instead casting his gaze towards the stage. There, a mysterious smile appeared on Drunkard's face again as he looked around and spoke. The next item is an extraordinary one indeed. In fact, it wasn't an item that was supposed to be auctioned today, but it was submitted by a certain friend who suddenly came today. Although it is something of a violation of policy, Sir City Lord judged that this item was indeed worthy enough to be auctioned today, so it has been allowed to appear. Hee, everyone, if you cultivate fire attribute secret arts or have a fire attribute artifact, please pay close attention. As he said this, he gestured toward the back and immediately a maid walked out, carrying a round bowl in her hands. Inside the auction hall, all the cultivators focused their gazes on this bowl curiously, especially those cultivators who cultivated fire-attributed secret arts, secret techniques, or had a fire attribute artifacts. They were particularly interested. Judging by its appearance, it was quite apparent that this bowl was a sealing artifact, and the runes on its surface continued to flash and pulse as they swam across its surface like fish in a pond. Most of the cultivators present here had sharp insight, so they naturally understood that the item to be auctioned wasn't the bowl itself, but whatever was sealed inside it. Interesting. I wonder what it contains. Kang Si Ran smiled lightly as he paid even closer attention. Yang Kai, on the other hand, furrowed his brow the moment the bowl appeared. For some reason, he felt a mysterious connection to whatever was inside the bowl. But because it was surrounded by multiple barriers, this feeling was very weak, almost imperceptible. If not for the throbbing and restlessness in his heart, even he wouldn't be certain it was real and not just his imagination. Yang Kai released his divine sense to investigate, but he couldn't break through the barriers to investigate the situation inside, and he did not dare to use force, so he could only frown deeply. Alchemist Yang, do you know what's inside? Kang Si Ran, noticing that Yang Kai's expression didn't seem right, asked curiously. Yang Kai subconsciously shook his head, but his eyes remained completely glued onto the bowl. The next moment, Drunkard started giving an introduction. This item was submitted by a Dao source grade friend, but because that friend happened to cultivate a water attribute secret art, this item wasn't useful to him, so he could only reluctantly part ways with it. If that was not the case, it would have been put up for auction. Sir Vice City Lord, don't leave us in suspense. It doesn't suit your personality, some impatient cultivator urged. Drunkard let out a chuckle as he said while nodding, but I will still have to provide some explanation. There were rumors a few months ago in Maplewood City that a fire attribute artifact spirit had appeared in the nearby Clear Jade Mountain. Many cultivators went to search for that artifact spirit, but ultimately it was determined that it wasn't a fire attribute artifact spirit, but an infant Luan Fong. My Maplewood City's cultivators competed for this baby Luan Fong, leading to many casualties but no result. At the last moment, a mature divine spirit Luan Fong appeared and breathed out its world-extinguishing black flame, incinerating everything within 100 kilometers to ashes. Those flames are still burning at Clear Jade Mountain to this day. The might of a divine spirit is truly horrifying. He sighed for a moment, as if he really saw those world-extinguishing black flame with his own eyes. Sir Vice City Lord, could the item here being auctioned really be an infant divine spirit? A cultivator on the floor of the hall, upon hearing Drunkard, make an excited guess. The same guess happened to be running through the minds of many others, and in an instant, rapid breathing spread across the hall as everyone stared greedily towards the bowl. Drunkard just chuckled, however, and spoke. An infant divine spirit? You guys really think we'd keep an infant divine spirit here? Forget about whether anyone would dare to bid on it. My Maplewood City wouldn't even dare to auction it. If anyone here dared to provoke a true divine spirit, Clear Jade Mountain's present situation would be Maplewood City's future. Who could bear responsibility for bringing about the death of everyone present today? As these words echoed in the hall, a chill ran down the spines of everyone present, and after giving it a second thought, they all realized it was indeed true. In this world, who would have the courage to put the descendant of a divine spirit on auction? That was no different from courting death. Then, Sir Vice City Lord, why do you speak of this? Drunkard grinned and continued. The main point is not about the infant divine spirit, but the fire attribute artifact spirit. I really don't know what you all were listening to. Good. This old master will let you see what it is that is being auctioned today. As he said this, he formed some seals with his hands and struck the bowl lightly. The seals around the round bowl began to flash as a crisp and resonant cry suddenly came from inside it. Immediately after, a fiery red light shot out. Chi! Suddenly, a 3-meter-tall burning flame appeared above the auction stage and rapidly condensed into the appearance of a flaming bird similar to a divine spirit phoenix. Amidst this firebird's flames, though, purple arcs of lightning could also be seen flashing. To everyone's surprise, this strange bird actually possessed the power of 2 attributes, lightning and fire. Furthermore, the aura it was emanating was extraordinary, equal to that of a third-order origin king. Its flaming body appeared quite majestic, and with its wings spread, it was a beautiful sight to behold. Raising its head, it let out a long cry, one that was filled with stubbornness, anger, and resistance. Lu Yen. Yang Kai in room B9 immediately stood up as his pupils shrank, and he cried out in surprise. Alchemist Yang? Kong Si Ran turned a strange look to Yang Kai, having no idea why Yang Kai showed such a big reaction. But when he noticed the look of pleasant surprise mixed with fury on Yang Kai's face, he suddenly seemed to understand. Yang Kai had never expected to meet Lu Yen in this kind of situation. In the Starlight Channel back then, he and his 2 companions, as well as President AIO, Red Moon Tribal Lord, and the others had been separated. To this day, he still had no idea where any of them were. Leaving aside President AIO and Chiyu, Yang Kai had always been deeply worried about Xiao Xiao and Lu Yen because one of them was a stone puppet with low intelligence and the other was an artifact spirit. No matter which one was discovered, they would certainly face grave danger. This was especially true for Lu Yen, as she was particularly attractive to cultivators who cultivated fire attribute secret arts or had fire attribute artifacts. If Lu Yan's artifact spirit body could be refined by a cultivator cultivating a fire attribute secret art, that cultivator's strength would increase dramatically, and if she were to be integrated into a fire attribute artifact, it would raise the grade of that fire attribute artifact significantly. What Yang Kai was afraid of had come true. It had been apparent now that Lu Yen had really been caught by a master and put on for auction. It was rather clear that many cultivators would be fighting to get their hands on her next. Fortunately, Xianxia was also at this auction, so there was some room to maneuver. It was a blessing in disguise. This also explained why, when the bowl was first brought out, Xianxia felt a kind of spiritual connection to the sealed object inside. When Lu Yen didn't have much sentience, Xianxia had left a soul imprint on her natal body, so naturally there was a connection between their two souls which had not been cut off. And as soon as Xianxia stood up, Lu Yen on the high stage also seemed to become aware of his presence, and her pair of fiery eyes turned towards private room B9 where he was. Immediately, she let out even more resonant cries as she flapped her wings hard, trying to fly to him. But Drunkard noticed this and promptly formed another hand seal, causing some chain-like seals to appear on Lu Yan's body, restraining her wings and forcing her back down. "Stop!" Xianxia couldn't help shouting out in anger when he saw this. However, as soon as his voice escaped his mouth, he realized that he had acted a little recklessly. Lu Yen might have belonged to him originally, but now she had been captured and put up for auction. He did not have the power or status to force Drunkard to show mercy to Lu Yen. On the contrary, his actions might let others see through their relationship. As this thought flashed across his mind, Xianxia took a deep breath and calmly said, "Sir Vice City Lord, please act gently. This one is very interested in this artifact spirit. Please don't hurt it." Drunkard had a friendly temperament, so after hearing this, he glanced in Xianxia's direction and said with a smile, "Rest assured, this old master has a sense of discretion and will not harm it. And, as everyone just saw, this fire attribute artifact spirit is the item to be auctioned now, and it is no ordinary artifact spirit at that. It has already achieved a high degree of sentience. If it can be refined into an artifact, it will be extremely useful." On the stage, Drunkard worked hard to promote Lu Yen, introducing her various unusual features, weaving an extravagant and colorful description that immediately piqued the interest of countless cultivators. In his private room, Xianxia sat back on his chair as a gloomy look covered his face. In the current situation, if he wanted to snatch Lu Yen back, he could only do so by winning this auction, or forcing the thousands of Origin Kings and dozens of Dao Source Realm Masters present to submit while he seized her by force. The latter obviously was impossible, of course. Although Xianxia was a third-order Origin King and had several Emperor artifacts on him, if he really tried to use force here, he would only be courting death. However, he didn't have many source crystals on him either. At the very least, there weren't enough for him to win Lu Yen at auction. He was extremely distraught for the moment. Kong Si Ran seemed to have gotten some hints about what was going on, and after a moment of silence, he asked in a low voice, "Alchemist Yang, do you have any relationship with that artifact spirit?" Xianxia nodded and explained, "Since shopkeeper Kong has noticed already, I won't hide it from you. Her name is Lu Yen. She was originally my artifact spirit." "Oh?" She was Alchemist Yang's artifact spirit. Even though Kong Si Ran had long ago guessed, he was still greatly shocked when he heard Xianxia's confirmation. "She is not just an artifact spirit, though. To me, she is a friend as well." "A friend?" Kong Si Ran looked at Xianxia with surprise, unable to wrap his head around his words. After all, could someone actually regard their artifact spirit as a friend? He found the whole concept hard to imagine. Confounded, Kong Si Ran didn't ask any more questions about it, and instead just said, "So it seems Alchemist Yang wants to participate in this auction?" "Yes, but I don't have many source crystals on hand." Xianxia furrowed his brow, wondering whether he should take out something to leverage for more. "Perhaps I can take out a piece of heavy earth? I don't need to take out much of it. Just a thumbnail-sized piece should be enough to pay for this auction. But once the heavy earth appears, it will cause a lot of trouble." "Haha, since this artifact spirit has such a relationship with Alchemist Yang should bid for it without restraint. Don't worry about source crystals. This old master can pay for them on your behalf. Alchemist Yang can pay me back when he has enough source crystals of his own." Kong Si Ran generously offered. Xianxia turned to Kong Si Ran and asked with a frown, "But shopkeeper Kong, don't you need those to bid for the Dao source fruit?" Kong Si Ran waved his hand and smiled. At first, this old master indeed had some plans for the Tao source fruit. But now, this old master does not expect to win it with the few source crystals he has on him. I had not expected so many Tao source realm masters to appear at this auction, and their wealth is undoubtedly far superior to this old master's. Since Alchemist Yang is in such urgent need, this old master will offer his assistance. As for the Tao source fruit, we'll just have to go and explore that cave mansion. Who knows? There might even be a Tao source pill inside. Shopkeeper Kong, how many source crystals do you have? Yang Kai asked in a solemn tone. Kong Si Ran raised his palm and stretched out his fingers. I don't have more than this. I hope it will be enough to help Alchemist Yang. Excellent. Many thanks, Brother Kong. I will not forget this kindness. Yang Kai earnestly thanked. Kong Si Ran's generosity had touched Yang Kai's heart, and he secretly decided that if Kong Si Ran didn't get the Tao source fruit this time, or find a Tao source pill in the cave mansion they were planning to explore soon, he would give Kong Si Ran a Tao source pill when he refined them in the future to repay today's favor. Having been in contact with Kong Si Ran these days, Yang Kai felt that he was a good man and someone worth making friends with. With Kong Si Ran's assistance, Yang Kai confidence had been greatly boosted. After all, the earlier Tao source-grade mid-rank alchemy furnace only sold for 6 million source crystals, and obviously Lu Yan's value was not higher than that of the Black Jade furnace. Even if she was an artifact spirit that had gained sentience, she was still only at the third-order Origin King level, so the assistance she could provide for real masters was limited. However, there was still something else to worry about. Just as Yang Kai was considering this, on the stage, Drunkard continued to speak. This artifact spirit seems to have had many fortuitous encounters and not only possesses rich, pure fire attribute energy, but it can also control thunder attribute energy. Everyone should not underestimate this artifact spirit. An ordinary third-order Origin King would certainly not be its opponent in a one-on-one situation. Only a Tao Source Realm Master could possibly subdue it, so even if some friends out there don't cultivate fire attribute secret arts, obtaining this artifact spirit will still be of great use as it could act as a powerful assistant. Yang Kai's face turned even blacker when heard Drunkard singing Lu Yan's praises, cursing in his heart as he wished he could rush up to the stage and sew Drunkard's mouth shut. The more he praised Lu Yan, the more enthusiastic the bidders would be and the worse things would be for Yang Kai. And last but not least, this artifact spirit, also has another form? A meaningful grin suddenly appeared on Drunkard's face as he gazed out across the crowd before forming another seal, causing the chain-like seals around Lu Yan to tighten again. Lu Yan cried out in pain as she was forced to transform into a charming and graceful woman wearing fiery red robes. See, she can take on a human form? What kind of chance did this artifact spirit encounter? Good, her body is almost completely corporeal. This has gone far beyond the range of a mere artifact spirit. I wonder just what it would feel like to touch her. When the many cultivators saw Lu Yan show her human form, they couldn't sit still and started shouting and clamoring over one another. Lu Yan, who stood on the stage, had an extremely cold look on her face, her expression saying she would not let anyone approach within 1,000 kilometers of her. But this coldness only added to her beauty, and many male cultivators began howling like wolves under the gaze of her phoenix eyes. What's more, all of Lu Yan's beautiful curves were particularly emphasized now that she was bound by the chain-like seals, causing obscene thoughts to surface in many men's hearts. Yang Kai facepalmed and heaved a heavy sigh. Kong Si Ran, who happened to be taking a sip of tea just now, couldn't help spitting it out awkwardly before he hurriedly wiped his mouth and turned an odd look to Yang Kai. Brother Yang, this old master now understands what you meant when you said she was your friend. Brother Kong, it's not what you think. Yang Kai tried to defend himself helplessly. We are both men, I understand. Kong Si Ran grinned meaningfully. Yang Kai just rolled his eyes and closed his mouth as any argument he made was useless. Everyone, as you've seen, this artifact spirit is not only a very powerful companion, but even just walking next to her will bring you great prestige and face. To be honest, the first time this old master saw her beauty, he was quite tempted to keep her for himself. Unfortunately, this old master is already too old for such things. If that were not the case, I would be competing with you as well, Drunkard laughed. Good enough nonsense. A fire attribute artifact spirit. The starting bid is 1 million source crystals and each raise cannot be less than 50,000. Everyone, please begin. The starting bid of Lu Yen was the same as that of the Dao source grade mid-rank alchemy furnace, causing Yang Kai to frown as he was struck with a bad premonition. Sure enough, just as Drunkard finished speaking, everyone started to call their bids one after another. Just 10 breaths later, the bids had broken through the 2 million mark. 3 million! Suddenly, a clear voice came from a private room in a block, dumbfounding everyone and forcing the cultivators who were just about to increase their own bid to fall silent. A direct increase of 1 million had happened once before, and from this same person no less. It's that senior! Someone couldn't help but cry out loud when he recognized that the voice belonged to the Dao Source Realm Master who had won the Black Jade Furnace. Wow, this senior is really rich. He just bought the Black Jade Furnace for 6 million and now he's bidding for this artifact spirit again. What do you know? If he can obtain both, they will complement each other perfectly. By integrating this artifact spirit into the Black Jade Furnace, he might be able to raise it to a Dao Source grade high-rank artifact. It might even be able to touch the level of an Emperor artifact. So that's how it is. It seems this senior is determined to win this fire attribute artifact spirit. Heh. Then let's see how good this senior's financial resources are. After all, there are many people interested in this artifact spirit. When he heard the voice calling 3 million, Yang Kai couldn't help feeling a headache coming on. He naturally knew who the owner of the voice was and why the other party was interested in Lu Yen. Naturally, it was all because this man had just won the Black Jade Furnace. It was just as the cultivators in the hall were discussing, this man probably wanted to integrate Lu Yen into that alchemy furnace to improve its grade. The other party was clearly quite wealthy, and was also very powerful, so as soon as he called his bid, many people who were preparing to call their own bid shut their mouths, causing the auction hall to sink into dead silence for a moment, with no one seemingly willing to compete. Yang Kai was left with no choice but to make a move seeing this and loudly shouted, "For million!" It was only Lu Yen he couldn't give up. Even if meant going bankrupt, he would not hesitate for an instant. Just as Yang Kai's voice echoed through the hall, the cold expression on Lu Yan's face, which had remained like ice the entire time, couldn't help shivering slightly, and whether consciously or unconsciously, she glanced towards room B9 before turning her gaze away, the corners of her lips curling upwards ever so slightly. She knew in her heart that Yang Kai would not let her fall into somebody else's hands. Apparently there's another fierce expert here. Haha. Things have become interesting now. I wonder who will be the final winner. It will depend on who has more source crystals. Yang Kai raised the bid from 3 million to 4 million in one breath, matching the previous upbid of 1 million source crystals. This way, his momentum wouldn't be inferior to the other party. In the A-block private room, a lean man who looked like he was in his 40s with a slightly rugged physique couldn't help frowning for a moment, releasing his divine sense towards B9. Although there were barriers around these private rooms to isolate the general divine sense investigation, as these had only been set up recently, they weren't that powerful, and the lean man's divine sense instantly broke through them to press down on Yang Kai and Kong Si Ran. Kong Si Ran immediately let out a grunt, his face turning pale as he felt like he was being suffocated. Yang Kai felt the same, but as soon as he circulated his spiritual energy, he recovered unharmed. A second-order Dao source realm. Yang Kai's heart sank, clearly inferring the other party's strength from the intensity of his divine sense. Brother Han. As the host of the auction, Drunkard naturally could not let a powerful master suppress other competitors using force or status, so he immediately shouted, "Please stop!" He directly called out the surname of the lean man, clearly indicating he knew his identity from the start. Upon hearing this, the lean man surnamed Han let out a sneer and said, "This Han meant no harm. He just wanted to take a look at his competition. Vice City Lord doesn't need to pay it any mind." Drunkard furrowed his brow and said in a calm manner, "If that is the case, that would be best. Brother Han is an honored guest, so you know the rules of the auction." "You don't need to remind me." The man surnamed Han let out a cold snort, clearly quite unhappy. Drunkard nodded solemnly before speaking. Then, let us continue with the auction. The friend in room B9 has bid 4 million. Will Brother Han raise his bid? After Drunkard finished speaking, before the man surnamed Han could even make a sound, a loud laugh suddenly reverberated from another block private room. This young lord bids 4.5 million. This laughter was filled with arrogance, and his tone gave off an aloof, disdainful impression, causing anyone who heard it to instinctually feel disgusted. Even Drunkard up on the stage furrowed his brow upon hearing this voice. The man surnamed Han's face turned even grimmer as the divine sense he had just withdrawn swept towards this new competitor. The man surnamed Han was a second-order Dao Source Realm Master, a man who could stand shoulder to shoulder with City Lord Duan Yuan Shan, so even if he was warned by Drunkard just now, he still didn't care about it. Obviously, he wanted to repeat the same threat, he just used to put a little pressure on the bidder in the next room, forcing him to retreat. Swiftly, the powerful divine sense of a second-order Dao Source Realm Master broke through the barrier of the private room. But what the man surnamed Han didn't expect was that before he could exert any kind of pressure, a burst of spiritual energy that was in no way inferior to his own immediately surged out of the room, blocking his divine sense. The man surnamed Han's pupils instantly constricted. But he was still too late to withdraw his divine sense, so he could only grit his teeth and meet his opponent head-on. An invisible clash happened inside the auction hall as the divine sense of the man surnamed Han was pushed back, causing him and the other master to let out stifled grunts. This collision of spiritual energy had ended in a draw. Second-order Dao Source Realm. The man surnamed Han's face turned black as he now understood why the man who had just placed a bid sounded so arrogant. It was because he had the protection of a true master. Obviously, whoever was in this room did not have a small background. The man surnamed Han couldn't help looking gloomy. Haha, this young lord had already bid 4.5 million. Is there anyone willing to offer more? If not, then this artifact spirit will belong to this young lord. The man who made the last bid didn't seem to care about the contest between the two Dao Source Realm Masters and began shouting arrogantly. Inside that private room, a middle-aged man slightly furrowed his brow as he gently rebuked, "Young Palace Master, this fire attribute artifact spirit isn't worth 4.5 million source crystals. Buying it for that much will only result in a loss. What's more, you do not cultivate a fire attribute secret art and you don't own any powerful fire attribute artifacts, so why do you want to buy it? If this matter came to be known by the Palace Master, I'm afraid you only know shit." Opposite the middle-aged man was a handsome young man holding a folding fan. He was dressed like a young lord, and when he heard the middle-aged man's rebuke, he just pursed his lips and said, "This young lord indeed doesn't cultivate a fire attribute secret art, nor does this young lord have a fire attribute artifact. But don't you think that this artifact spirit is very beautiful? Besides, this young lord is curious about one more thing. What will she feel like? Would she feel any different from a human? If that's the case, heh, no matter how many source crystals are spent, this young lord is willing." The middle-aged man momentarily frowned upon hearing this, but he knew he couldn't interfere much in the end. All he could do was shake his head and smile wryly as he knew this young lord of his was obsessed with women, especially the cold, mature beauties. In other words, this artifact spirit's figure was perfectly in line with his young lord's tastes. 5 million. Yang Kai in room B9 raised the bid without a change in his expression. Bastard! As soon as Yang Kai made his bid, the young lord quickly stood up and shouted, completely discordant with the occasion. "Do you dare to try to snatch something that this young lord is interested in? Are you trying to oppose my flying Saint Palace? This young lord bids 5.1 million. Everyone immediately understood his identity when he said this. The bidder was impressively the young palace master of Flying Saint Palace, Ning Yuancheng. Yang Kai was also taken aback. No wonder I found this guy's voice a little familiar. So it's that Ning Yuancheng. Yang Kai had dealt with this arrogant young master more than once. The first time was when he helped Mo Shaoqi escape from Ning Yuancheng's encirclement, and the second was in the 5-colored treasure pagoda. But as his mind was completely preoccupied with Lu Yen, Yang Kai didn't pay any attention to him and as such had failed to recognize his voice immediately. In that case, the divine sense that clashed with that man surnamed Han must be Ning Yuan Chen's guard? Lu Yizhi. What thing is flying Saint Palace? If your father Ning Boyang was here, this Han might give him some face and give up on this artifact spirit, but you… You're not worthy. 5.2 million. The man surnamed Han shouted from his private room with a sneer. And who might your excellency be? Ning Yuancheng's face turned gloomy as he interrogated. The man surnamed Han simply cackled. Go back and ask your father. He will tell you who I am. Damn you. How dare you look down on this young lord? Ning Yuancheng's face turned livid in anger. Young palace master. This is someone else's territory, and that man surnamed Han is not someone to be taken lightly. We should give way. Lu Yizhi persuaded. Give way? Why should I? This young lord cannot swallow this insult. So he dares to look down on this young lord? Good. We will see who has more source crystals then. He must be seeking death to try competing with this young lord. Ning Yuancheng appeared to have lost his mind and immediately lashed out. 5.5 million. 5.6 million. The man surnamed Han calmly raised his bid. 6 million. 6.1 million. Unlike before, Yang Kai couldn't even find the chance to intervene in the later bids. And when the price soared past 6 million, he knew that he had no hope. Kong Si Ran only had 5 million source crystals, and Yang Kai only had a few 100,000, so in total he had less than 6 million. Unless he really took out some heavy earth as leverage, he didn't have enough. However, the heavy earth was far too precious and would only attract endless trouble if he brought it out now. So upon realizing he had no hope of winning this bidding war, Yang Kai simply fell silent. Kong Si Ran snuck a glance at Yang Kai and couldn't help but sigh as he tried to comfort. Brother Yang, please accommodate change. Yang Kai gently nodded but didn't speak anymore. At this point, anyone could tell that the current competition had become something more than just trying to secure interests. If the man surnamed Han was bidding to use Lu Yen for his black jade furnace, then Ning Yuancheng was bidding to not lose his face. And even if the man surnamed Han had amazing financial resources, he had just spent 6 million source crystals to buy the black jade furnace, so he might not have too many left now. When the bids rose to 7 million, the man surnamed Han's voice sank and his face turned gloomy. Finally, when Ning Yuancheng shouted 7.5 million, the man surnamed Han finally fell silent. Ha! Before you try to rob something from this young lord, you should consider your own worth first. This young lord has never missed anything he has set his eyes upon. Ning Yuancheng loudly mocked. Young lord, it's best to be lenient whenever possible. The nearby Lu Yizhi suggested in a whispering voice. And why should I? That man didn't put this young lord in his eyes. So must this young lord kneel down and lick his feet? Nonsense. Ning Yuancheng flicked open his fan and began fanning himself triumphantly. Lu Yizhi sighed in resignation, knowing it would be useless to say anything more. Flying St. Palace's young palace master has bid 7.5 million. Does anyone have a higher bid? 7.5 million going once, going twice, going thrice, and sold. The fire attribute artifact spirit now belongs to young palace master Ning. Please send someone backstage and pay the source crystals and collect your item. A smile appeared on Drunkard's wrinkled face. As he was hosting the auction, he would naturally get greater benefits for selling items for better prices. After he finished speaking, a serious look appeared on Drunkard's face as he solemnly said, We have arrived at the finale of the auction and at the item all of you have been waiting for. And this old man will say nothing more and will simply present it. As he spoke, a maid immediately carried out a jade tray from the back. This was the final item, the Tao source fruit that had been contributed by Heavenly Martial Holy Land to this time's opening of the 5-colored treasure pagoda. For a moment, everyone's eyes fixed onto the tray. Many cultivators had never seen a Tao source fruit before, so even if they knew there was no chance for them to obtain it here, they still wished to satisfy their curiosity by taking a good look at it, perhaps giving them something to boast about in the future. Many people came to this auction just for this Tao source fruit, and all of the Dao Source Realm Masters in a block private rooms had purposefully not made any bids before to save their resources, not even participating in the auction for the Black Jade Furnace or Lu Yen. These masters came for a single purpose: the Dao Source Fruit. On the off chance that they could obtain this Dao Source Fruit and refine it into Dao Source Pills, they may be able to obtain 5 to 6 pills if they were lucky. In other words, they would be able to create 5 to 6 Dao Source Realm Masters for their force, a massive temptation for any sect or family. This last auction was doomed to be a fierce competition between the big forces present. As for Yang Kai, his mind was no longer on the auction at all. The Dao Source Fruit might be attractive to others, but as far as he was concerned, it wasn't even worth a glance. After all, he already had a Dao Source Fruit in his possession. More importantly, he didn't have the financial resources to partake in this auction. At this moment, Yang Kai's focus was on silently sensing Lu Yan's position. Although there was only a subtle connection between Lu Yan and him because of the seals around the bowl she was trapped in, he could still sense her general position, allowing himself to remain calm. Since he couldn't compete for Lu Yan openly because of his meager wealth, he could only choose to snatch her. Fortunately, Ning Yuanchang eventually won the bid for Lu Yan, so Yang Kai would not feel the least bit burdened after robbing him. He had some grievances to settle with Ning Yuanchang anyway, and had even gotten into a fight with him at the entrance to the second layer of the 5-colored treasure pagoda. Yang Kai didn't care about the other members of Flying St. Palace's delegation, but the second-order Dao Source Realm Lu Yizhi was a bit tricky to deal with. A second-order Dao Source Realm Master wasn't someone Yang Kai could face on his own currently. Fortunately, he had his 2 blood beasts, the Monster Insect Queen and the Blue Flame Thunder Wolf, one of which had the strength of a second-order Dao Source Realm Master, while the other had strength on par with a first-order Dao Source Realm Cultivator. As such, it shouldn't be too difficult for him to tie down Lu Yizhi if they worked together. As long as Lu Yizhi was taken out of the picture, Yang Kai could easily snatch Lu Yan from Ning Yuanchang, who was clearly just an embroidered pillow, impressive looking on the surface but soft and weak on the inside. Having made up his mind, Yang Kai now had to plan carefully to limit any outside variables that could interfere with his mission. While Yang Kai's mind was elsewhere, the auction hall was already in full swing because of the Dao Source Fruit. Even Kong Si Ran joined the bidding, but with his limited resources, he could only make 2 bids before the price soared past the point he could afford, forcing him to give up. After someone shouted 8 million, Kong Si Ran slumped down on his chair and heaved a long sigh. However, Yang Kai could not afford to care about this at the moment as he was focused on sensing Lu Yan's aura, which was already inside the private room of Flying St. Palace. Apparently, the deal had already been settled with the City Lord's mansion. However, Ning Yuanchang didn't seem to be that anxious to leave and instead stayed where he was to spectate the fierce struggle for the Dao Source Fruit. The bidding for the Dao Source Fruit was extraordinarily fierce. At the beginning, Origin King Realm cultivators could participate, but in the later stage only Dao Source Masters were eligible to bid. While they were calling their bids, they were fighting openly and covertly, clashing with each other with divine senses all over the auction house. From time to time, a stifled groan would be heard from some private room, obviously the result of someone suffering a loss. And the host of the auction, Drunkard, seemed to have already expected it and didn't care one bit. As for the City Lord's mansion, no one stepped out to stop the chaos, simply allowing them to fight amongst themselves. With the rising bids being called out one by one, the atmosphere of the auction hall grew more and more intense, making the cultivators sitting in the lower hall flabbergasted. Yang Kai also gained some insights from this mess, learning about how deep the heritages of these masters backed by their powerful families and sects really were. The auction lasted for more than an hour, and the Dao Source Fruit was eventually won by the Dao Source Realm Master in the A-block private rooms for the steep price of 11 million. Throughout the star boundary, most second- and third-class sects would find it difficult to spend 11 million source crystals all at once, but if they could create a few Dao Source Realm Masters in exchange, raising the overall strength of their force, it was well worth the price. Finally, the auction had come to an end. Yang Kai and Kong Si Ran left the auction house together, with many other cultivators also leaving in groups of 2s or 3s, excitedly chatting about what they had seen just now. "Brother Yang, I will go back for a few days to make preparations before we set off. I hope that place will not disappoint me." Kang Si-ran whispered to Yang. Yang Kai naturally knew what place he was referring to exactly and promptly nodded. Good. Then I will wait for Brother Kang's message. I will take my leave then, goodbye. Kang Si-ran cupped his fists before he turned around and left. After he had left, Yang Kai also turned around and headed off. After a while, he arrived at a certain street and casually found a tavern to enter. Sitting down next to a window, he ordered some wine and food and began enjoying himself. The reason why he didn't return to his rented secluded home was that he wanted to track Lu Yen. It wasn't easy to make a move inside Maplewood City, so he could only wait for the Flying Saint Palace group to leave the city. The Flying Saint Palace could also be considered a great force in the Southern Territory, and naturally because of the appearance of Luanfeng last time and the opening of the five-colored treasure pagoda as well as the later auction fair, the Flying Saint Palace delegation had remained inside Maplewood City for some time. However, according to Yang Kai's calculations, they should not be staying for too much longer, so he waited patiently for the right opportunity. But Yang Kai didn't expect he would have to wait 2 whole days. During this time, the Flying Saint Palace group had been staying inside their inn, never leaving. Yang Kai could still vaguely perceive Lu Yan's aura and wasn't worried about losing sight of her or worried about being discovered by the second-order Dao Source Realm Master, Lu Yizhi. Yang Kai reckoned that the people from Flying Saint Palace were staying in Maplewood City because Ning Yuanchang wanted to subdue Lu Yan. His guess wasn't wrong. At this moment, in a room on the upper floor of the inn, Ning Yuanchang was angrily staring at the bowl in front of him as he formed some seals, causing a strange flaming red bird to immediately emerge from the bowl. Lu Yizhi was standing by Ning Yuanchang's side, seemingly never having left that spot. Slut! Ning Yuanchang seemed to be fuming for some reason and was now lashing out in anger at Lu Yan. Hurry up and show your human form. Don't pretend to be ignorant. Don't think for a moment that this young lord doesn't know that your intelligence is high and you can understand all of my words. Lu Yan, who had been trapped under many seals, just kept flapping her wings while quietly hovering midair, not making a single cry or trying to cause any trouble. And just when Ning Yuanchang showed an opening though, she swiftly opened her beak and shot out a ball of thunder fire towards him. This scene had apparently happened many times, so Ning Yuanchang wasn't surprised by it. He didn't even dodge as Lu Yizhi, who had been guarding him, simply waved his hand at the thunder fireball and erased it. Heh, your temper is fiery. Excellent, this young lord likes that about you, but since you are reluctant to show your human form, don't blame this young lord for being ruthless. Deacon Lu, get ready. We are returning to the Saint Palace. The nearby Lu Yizhi was overjoyed after hearing this and immediately confirmed, Young Palace Master, are we going back? I have tried for 2 days, but I still can't make this bitch submit, so there's no reason to remain here any longer. Let's return to the Saint Palace first where I can seek assistance from Lord Father. At that time, I'd like to see how she refuses to bow to me. Ning Yuanchang let out a cold snort before he formed some new seals and forced Lu Yan back into the bowl. After half an hour, the team from Flying Saint Palace checked out of the inn and walked towards the city gate. Yang Kai, who had been meditating in a room in the same inn, suddenly opened his eyes and breathed a sigh of relief. They're finally leaving. If Flying Saint Palace didn't leave, he would really be troubled. After all, he had promised Kang Si-ran that he would go with him to explore that cave mansion soon. So he really didn't want to draw out this conflict any longer. While it wouldn't be a big deal to explain to Kang Si-ran that he needed a few more days, doing so would still break the trust between them. At this moment, the Flying Saint Palace disciples were walking towards the city gate to leave Maplewood City as Yang Kai had expected. He didn't immediately follow them, however, and instead waited for a while before also leaving his room and making his way towards the same city gate. Sometime later, on a plane millions of kilometers away from Maplewood City, Yang Kai hurriedly flew forward. Because of his subtle connection with Lu Yan, he had a clear idea about the location of Flying Saint Palace's group, so he wasn't worried about losing them. However, he didn't have a suitable flight-type artifact on hand, so he was also unable to catch up with the opposite party, making him a little impatient. While rushing forward at full speed, Yang Kai suddenly felt a powerful and overbearing divine sense sweep past him. This sudden situation made Yang Kai's expression change, and he forced himself to stop. That divine sense was devoid of murderous intent, but it was still extremely cold, and after sweeping over Yang Kai, it casually withdrew. Yang Kai stood in his place, a little confused, only a moment later realizing something and muttering under his breath. There's someone else chasing after flying St. Palace? This feeling, it's that man surnamed Han. During the previous auction, a man surnamed Han had used his divine sense to pressure Kong Si Ran and Yang Kai. This memory was still fresh in Yang Kai's mind, so he was immediately able to identify the other party. It was just that he hadn't expected that someone else would be eyeing flying St. Palace's group, just like he was. If it weren't for the fact that the other party had confidence in his strength and didn't attach any importance to a mere origin king, Yang Kai might not have noticed him. Once he attacked the flying St. Palace delegation, this man surnamed Han might have taken advantage of and used him. Thinking so, Yang Kai couldn't help breaking out into a cold sweat. Fortunately, the man surnamed Han didn't have such plans. Otherwise, things would have become really troublesome. The man surnamed Han wanted to use his divine sense to intimidate Yang Kai, apparently, and force him to retreat from these muddy waters, and if it were any other origin king, this tactic might really have worked, but Yang Kai had a reason he needed to persist. After a while, Yang Kai continued his pursuit. However, this time, he was no longer as anxious and instead just pressed forward in a steady manner. In any case, the man surnamed Han was going to confront flying St. Palace, so Yang Kai wasn't in a rush to make the first move. It would be best for him to act once both sides were mutually wounded, or better yet, killed one another. Presumably, the man surnamed Han was chasing after flying St. Palace's group for Lu Yen. During the auction, his finances were weaker than Ning Yuanchen's, so he could only rob them to get what he wanted now. He just happened to have the same plan as Yang Kai. With the man surnamed Han as the vanguard, Yang Kai became far more relaxed, and while continuing the chase, he began to strategize about his next move. It would be better if he could prevent both sides from discovering him while approaching as close as possible. But after thinking about it for a long time, he couldn't come up with a good strategy, causing him to be a bit depressed. All he could do now was act according to the circumstances. After another half a day, when it was beginning to get dark, Yang Kai, who was still flying, suddenly raised his eyes to look into the distance as his expression changed. Flickering lights could be seen in that direction, and if one listened carefully, they could vaguely hear intermittent explosions coinciding with those flashes as well as intense bursts of spiritual energy. He finally made his move. Yang Kai was ecstatic and hurriedly used his Nihility secret technique before continuing his approach. In addition to having a miraculous effect of avoiding fatal attacks, Yang Kai's Nihility secret technique could also conceal his aura and appearance. This secret technique was derived from his comprehension of the Tao of space and was far superior to ordinary concealment technique from big sects. Unless there was a cultivator with a cultivation a whole great realm higher than Yang Kai, it would be impossible for them to detect his existence unless they performed a thorough search. After flying forward for half an hour, Yang Kai had finally arrived at the location of the fight. Under the moonlight, a flying ship was suspended mid-air and vague figures could be seen on the deck, all looking towards a certain direction. One of the figures was, impressively, flying St. Palace's young palace master, Ning Yuancheng. As for the others, they were naturally the disciples of flying St. Palace. In the sky about 1,000 meters away from the ship, two figures were entangled with each other, apparently fighting in close quarters. Yang Kai looked closely and found that the two figures were the man surnamed Han and Lu Yizhi. The fight between them was intense but steady as both of them were in the same realm, so the one who persevered longer and wore down his opponent would be the winner. Judging from how they were confronting one another though, it didn't seem like either side was holding back. Obviously, both of these men had experienced many battles, and by the looks of it, the fight would continue for some time. After watching for a while, Yang Kai turned his gaze towards flying St. Palace's ship artifact. At this moment, Ning Yuancheng was standing on the deck with a leisurely look on his face, seemingly not worried at all that Lu Yizhi would be defeated. He gently fanned himself with his folding fan and would sometimes point towards the battlefield. Naturally, The Flying Saint Palace disciples repeatedly nodded to his comments and orders. Additionally, there was a rippling green light shield around the ship, enveloping it in a protective layer. Obviously, this was the defensive barrier of the ship. Yang Kai slightly furrowed his brow. Now that the two second-order Dao Source Realm Masters were busy fighting each other, it was a good opportunity to make his move, but the ship's barrier also seemed pretty sturdy, so Yang Kai wasn't sure he could break through it in one go, much less do so quietly. Yang Kai reckoned he would expose himself as long as he approached the ship. After considering it for a long time, he decided to wait for an opportunity to present itself. Reaching this conclusion, he turned his attention back to the battlefield of two Dao Source Realm Masters. Even after so long, Flying Saint Palace's Lu Yizhi and the man surnamed Han were still fighting furiously with one another, neither showing weakness. But Yang Kai could subtly tell that something wasn't right. If the man surnamed Han didn't have any confidence to attack and defeat Flying Saint Palace's group, he would not have recklessly shown himself here. Otherwise, not only would he fail to obtain what he wanted, he would also offend Flying Saint Palace. Anyone with a little bit of brains wouldn't do this. Since the man surnamed Han chose to make a move, he must have a card up his sleeve. Yang Kai was taken aback after this thought crossed his mind and immediately rejoiced that he had not acted recklessly just now. Who is your excellency? Why not state your name? What are your intentions acting so secretively here? In the sky, the Dao Source Grade Saber in Lu Yizhi's hand flashed as it slashed towards the man surnamed Han. The man surnamed Han floated back into the distance, borrowing the momentum of their recent clash while leisurely flicking his own sword before pointing back at Lu Yizhi and sneering. You can't recognize me because of your inexperience, yet you actually want to find fault with that? How ridiculous. Lu Yizhi furrowed his brow and shouted in a solemn tone. I know that your excellency is surnamed Han, but heaven knows how many people are surnamed Han in this world? I don't care where your excellency is from. If you withdraw, this Lu will not pursue today's matter. Continue to antagonize this Lu, however, and you will become an enemy of my Flying Saint Palace, and this Lu will no longer show any mercy. Flying Saint Palace, is it? The man surnamed Han snickered sarcastically. Oh, I'm so scared. Do you think a trivial Flying Saint Palace can make this Han have reservations? Not to mention Flying Saint Palace, even if it was Star Soul Palace, why would I care? Star Soul Palace has been hunting this master down for more than a few years now. But isn't this master still alive and kicking? Ha! Lu Yizhi muttered in surprise as he stared at the man surnamed Han in shock, startled greatly by this remark. Star Soul Palace was the real overlord of the Southern Territory, and none dared to challenge its authority or power, but judging from this man's remarks, he actually seemed to be a fugitive from Star Soul Palace, yet somehow he was still alive and living quite comfortably at that. You couldn't be... Suddenly, a name flashed across Lu Yizhi's mind, one he had heard about over a decade ago, shocking him to his core. Pointing at the man before him, he shouted, I know who you are. You're Han Leng, the one who was banished by Star Soul Palace. Over a decade ago, a disciple of an elder-level Emperor Realm Master of Star Soul Palace committed a huge mistake. Originally, he should have been executed according to the rules of Star Soul Palace, but somehow it seemed he got wind of his impending sentence, killed several of his fellow disciples, stole some kind of precious treasure from Star Soul Palace, and escaped. Star Soul Palace had been searching for him ever since. Back then, this matter had provoked many lively discussions in the Southern Territory, as many Star Soul Palace disciples had been sent out to hunt down this traitor. They wanted to capture him alive and return him to Star Soul Palace to face justice. But unfortunately, no one succeeded and many had lost their lives to Han Leng instead. This matter had left a stain on Star Soul Palace, but the other sects and families dared not discuss it in public, only whispering about it behind closed doors. Over the past decade, Star Soul Palace had never ended its pursuit of this traitor, but unfortunately they also never managed to capture him. Later, there were even rumors that this traitor was the illegitimate son of that Emperor Realm Elder, and that Elder had personally released him back then. Of course, no one knew whether this news was true or false. Lu Yizhi, as a part of the upper echelons of Flying Saint Palace, naturally knew of such secrets and also knew that the traitor's name was Han Leng. At first, Lu Yizhi hadn't associated this man with Hang Lang. But after hearing the latter's words just now, he immediately drew this conclusion. Are you really that traitor Han Lung of Star Soul Palace? So what if I am? Han Lung opposite Lu Yizhi admitted without shying away, chuckling as he wore a complacent grin on his face, like he had prevailed in his schemes. Now, it's too late for you already. Lu Yizhi's heart clenched when he heard this and instinctually shouted, "Shit!" Just as he said this, he turned around and tried to fly towards the ship, looking quite frantic as if something terrible was about to happen. But right then, Han Lung quickly formed some hand seals with a serious look on his face, and in the next moment, a bright shining moon actually appeared in the sky, blinding everyone's eyes, making it almost impossible for anyone to see anything around them. Suddenly, a beam of white light shot down from the bright moon and poured directly into Han Lung. In the next moment, rays of moonlight radiated in all directions with Han Lung as the center. In just 3 breaths, the area within a range of several dozen kilometers was shrouded in an inexplicable force, forming an isolated region. Within several dozen kilometers of Han Lung, one could only see bright moons of all sizes filling the sky. Round moons, waning moons, crescent moons, but no stars. At that moment, it had already become another world. Heavenly Lunar Cycle Grand Array. Lu Yizhi's face suddenly turned incomparably grave as he confirmed the reason for this change. He he he. Han Lung's figure had already disappeared. At this moment, his voice was radiating from all directions, making it difficult to locate him. That's right. Since you recognized this spirit array, you can die satisfied. When did you set it up? Lu Yizhi asked with an ashen face. Having known that you are from Flying St. Palace, your route was easy to figure out. So how hard could it be to arrange an array in advance? You can only blame your young palace master for not placing anyone in his eyes, as if no one would dare provoke your Flying St. Palace. Han Lung's voice continued to drift from everyone. On the deck of the nearby ship, Ning Yuancheng's face also became extremely ugly. Although he appeared extremely safe on the deck of the ship, it was already surrounded by the heavenly lunar cycle grand array at this moment, and judging by Lu Yizhi's expression, this Han Lung seemed to be an extremely dangerous enemy, and the spirit array was somehow extraordinary. Having considered all this, he suddenly pointed at the Flying St. Palace disciples on the deck and ordered, "Go and quickly help Deacon Lu. This young lord will coordinate the battle from here." There were more than a dozen Origin Kings with him on the ship, most of them 2nd or 3rd order, so their combined force wasn't weak at all. These disciples didn't hesitate for a single moment after hearing his order and used their movement skills to fly up from the ship, heading toward Lu Yizhi. "Don't come out," Lu Yizhi subconsciously shouted, but it was too late. The moment these disciples flew out of the ship, countless beams of silvery moonlight that seemed gentle and harmless at first glance shot out from the various moons. However, the Flying St. Palace disciples had an extremely rich combat experience and would not simply let these beams of moonlight hit them before understanding the nature of the spirit array. So they hurriedly dodged these beams, one after another. One of the 2nd-order Origin Kings was too late to react though, and half of his body was struck by a moonlight beam. Immediately, the left half of the 2nd-order Origin King's body melted away without any sound or sign. The protective Saint Chi around his body didn't play any role at all. Seemingly only barely feeling a thing, the 2nd-order Origin King turned his head to look at himself, but what he saw next crushed his soul. He immediately screamed as he plummeted straight to the ground, but before he landed, he had already stopped breathing. Such a strange scene had naturally caught everyone's eyes, and almost everyone gasped at the sight of this as a chill running down their spines. Lu Yizhi sighed heavily. Although he was cursing Ning Yuancheng in his heart, he didn't voice out his thoughts. Rather, he quickly adjusted himself and shouted, "Since you've come out already, follow me to break this array. The heavenly lunar cycle grand array is indeed amazing, but the one who arranged it doesn't seem too skilled. As long as we work together, we can carve our way out." The Origin Kings panicked when they saw their companion die so tragically, but after being pacified by Lu Yizhi, they immediately steadied themselves as they steeled themselves and gathered towards Lu Yizhi. Han Lung's sneers immediately echoed from every direction as the countless silver moons shook under his control. One after another, beams of moonlight shot towards the flying Saint Place cultivators from all directions, all while Han Lung's position remained hidden. Block! Luigi shouted fiercely as he took the lead to brandish the saber in his hand. A blade of light immediately left the saber, growing to several dozen meters before flying towards the front. The others didn't dare to tarry and also hastily cast their respective secret techniques and brandished their artifacts. In a flash, colorful flashes of light glimmered as they crashed into the oncoming silver beams, one after another. However, the stalemate only lasted for a moment before the silver beams broke through the flying St. Palace's group's defense and struck towards them. Lu Yiji's pupils constricted as he hurriedly shouted at the top of his voice, "Scatter!" Some people with quick reactions immediately dodged to the side, but those who reacted slower weren't lucky enough to escape. Just like this, the flying St. Palace disciples, who had just gathered around, were immediately sent running. Before they could gather again, the heavenly lunar cycle grand array was triggered once more as countless silver beams of moonlight shouted. This time, the flying St. Palace cultivators weren't so lucky. Many had just stabilized their footing and hadn't had the time to catch their breath. So 3 of them were unable to avoid the moonlight beams and were struck head-on. These moonlight beams shot out by the heavenly lunar cycle grand array were incredibly lethal, with extreme corrosive and penetrating ability. Just like how the flying St. Palace disciple tragically died before, all those who were struck by these moonlight beams screamed miserably one after another as they watched parts of their body melt, their auras ceasing to exist shortly after. And all the Saint Chi protection around their bodies didn't work at all. Even the defensive artifacts of these cultivators were melted in half. "Deacon Lu, save me." One person didn't immediately die, but the moonlight beam had left a large hole in his abdomen that one could clearly see his 5 viscera, 6 organs through. This man struggled to fly toward Lu Yiji, shouting for help. The corrosive force around the wound on his abdomen was like maggots on rotting bone, unable to be dispelled and quickly corroding the other intact body parts. As this disciple flew towards Lu Yiji, the wound on his abdomen continued to expand and soon even his bones were exposed. Suddenly, a slap landed on this person's head, causing it to burst. The flying St. Palace disciples in the vicinity, who were still alive, went silent for a moment as they turned looks of horror towards Lu Yiji. "He couldn't be saved," Lu Yiji shouted in fury. "Rather than let him suffer, it's better to give him a quick and painless death." "Ha ha ha!" Han Lung's laughter suddenly echoed from everywhere. "Is everyone from Flying St. Palace so cruel? You've opened this Han's eyes today." Having been ridiculed by him, Lu Yiji immediately grew angry out of shame and lashed out in anger. "If your surname is Han, I dare you to show your figure and fight fairly against this Lu. Cowering behind a spirit array, how can that be considered your own skill? Ridiculous. How ridiculous. If this Han taking advantage of this spirit array can't be called my skill, can your act of using many to bully the few be called skill?" Han Lung rebuked in contempt. Lu Yiji's provocations had no effect, leaving him with no other choice. Lu Yiji turned to the surviving flying St. Palace disciples and shouted, "Why are you just standing there doing nothing? If you want to survive, attack this spirit array with your full strength." Nobody dared to be negligent after hearing this and quickly displayed their most powerful attacks, aimlessly bombarding the surrounding space. Although Lu Yiji's brutality had scared them just now, they knew that he was right. Surrounded by this heavenly lunar cycle grand array, they could only continue attacking if they wanted to survive. A bunch of clowns. After ridiculing everyone, Han Lung's figure suddenly appeared somewhere mid-air. Forming a series of hand seals, he had the silver moons shoot untold beams of moonlight towards a certain spot, condensed together, causing a massive sense of oppression to those down below. "Go!" The huge beam of moonlight immediately shot in the direction of a certain flying St. Palace disciple with the wave of Han Lung's hand. The speed of this beam was much faster than before and was impossible to guard against. That disciple didn't even have the chance to make an evasive action before he was directly enveloped by that beam of moonlight and vanished from the face of this world. Lu Yizhi seemed to have been waiting for this very moment though, and as soon as Han Ling's figure was exposed, Lu Yizhi spat out a mouthful of blood essence onto his saber, causing it to vibrate slightly. In the next instant, his figure disappeared from its place and reappeared again before Han Ling, slashing down at him with his saber. Under Lu Yizhi's anticipating gaze, Han Ling's figure was cut into two. A look of joy immediately appeared on Lu Yizhi's face, but soon after, he realized there was something wrong. Although Han Ling's body was split into two, no blood flowed out. Soon after, Han Ling's severed figure distorted before it disappeared altogether. What he hit was Han Ling's phantom, while Han Ling had clearly hidden again long ago. Lu Yizhi furrowed his brow, finding the situation very difficult to deal with. In terms of cultivation, Han Ling and he were on par with each other and their combat power was almost equal, so it was reasonable to say that it was impossible for Han Ling to have such an obvious advantage. However, with the assistance of the Heavenly Lunar Cycle Grand Array, Lu Yizhi couldn't grasp Han Ling's location at all and was forced to defend passively, causing him to grow increasingly anxious. The huge beam of moonlight didn't disappear after its first kill, and instead kept flying back and forth within the range of the array, melting away one flying St. Palace disciple after another. In just a short span of a dozen or so breaths, only two Origin Kings remained. The two Origin Kings both looked at each other and noticed the intention to escape in each other's eyes. They knew that if they didn't make a run for it, they would definitely die. And so, their figures bolted straight towards the ship. With a flash of moonlight, one of them was struck by the large beam and disintegrated before he could even scream. The last man managed to escape to the front of the ship where he cried out, "Young Palace Master, please let your subordinate in." On the deck of the ship, Ning Yuanchun stood there with a panicked look on his face, turning a deaf ear to the cries of that disciple and instead angrily lashing out at him. "Get away from here. Don't lead that thing here. Young Palace Master, you?" The disciple looked at Ning Yuanchun as desperation filled his face, but before he could finish his words, the beam of moonlight struck him from behind, piercing a hole straight through his chest. Long. A thunderous clap resounded through the sky. The thick moonlight beam's remaining power hit the protective screen of the ship, causing a sizzling noise to ring out as if something was being melted. The light shield around the ship was also flickering. Ning Yuanchun couldn't help but stumble a few steps back before falling down on his butt. Luckily, the grade of this ship wasn't low, seemingly reaching the Tao source grade, so its defense was quite good. "So that's how it is. I've finally caught you." The moment the moonlight beam disappeared, Lu Yizhi suddenly appeared before the ship and slashed the saber. Suddenly, a figure appeared in front of him. It was none other than Han Ling, his face somewhat pale, and there was a fresh cut on his robes. Apparently, he had been hit by Lu Yizhi's attack just now. Facing each other before the ship, Han Ling's face was gloomy, while Lu Yizhi looked solemn. "It seems you noticed some clues." Han Ling's face was a little pale, seemingly having become exhausted from maintaining the operation of the spirit array. "Indeed." Lu Yizhi lifted his saber. This Lu had heard of the Heavenly Lunar Cycle Grand Array long ago, but after seeing it today, I realized that it is just an auxiliary spirit array. You have been hiding in the moonlight this whole time. This Lu had almost failed to notice this. Han Ling broke into laughter. "Deacon Lu really has a sharp eye. This Han had been trying to hide his whereabouts, but I hadn't thought I would still be discovered by you. Since I have found this flaw, today this place will be your burial ground." Lu Yizhi pointed the saber at Han Ling as his voice grew colder. However, Han Ling just grinned wider as he said, "That will depend on whether you have the ability or not." Saying so, he formed a few hand seals as the countless silver moons started vibrating again. "Are you still trying the same old trick?" Lu Yizhi fiercely shouted as he slashed the saber in his hand all around him, sending out arcs of saber chi one after another. Principal strength began to vibrate in the surrounding, causing the silver moons to distort and shatter. "The Heavenly Lunar Cycle Grand Array is just so. Is that so?" A strange look appeared on Han Ling's face before his entire figure blossomed with a dazzling radiance, like he had turned into a brilliant full moon. "What?" Luigi turned pale with fear as he instinctively felt a lethal threat. Hurriedly, he summoned a shield-like artifact before him, one that rotated rapidly as it expanded to the size of a tabletop, shielding Luigi's entire figure behind it. Right then, Han Lung seemed to have finished his preparation, and a piercing blade of moonlight flew straight out towards Luigi like an arrow flying off the bowstring. Not only that, the silver moons in the surrounding, which had been destabilized, also shot beams of moonlight under Han Lung's control, pouring into the Sword of Light. The light sword grew larger, and in just a few short breaths, it became several dozen meters long. A terrifying pressure immediately came bearing down from the sky, not only causing Ning Yuancheng, who had just fallen on his backside, to turn pale, but also causing Luigi, who was desperately urging his shield artifact, to feel a deathly threat. Only now did he realize that he had vastly underestimated Han Lung and the Heavenly Lunar Cycle Grand Array. The Heavenly Lunar Cycle Grand Array was a spirit array that originated from Star Soul Palace, and as the overlord of the Southern Territory, it was an outstanding masterpiece. Luigi might have seen through some of its intricacies, but he couldn't see through them all. By underestimating this spirit array, he had brought about his own defeat. Young Palace Master, quickly escape! Luigi gritted his teeth and shouted before biting the tip of his tongue and spewing his blood essence forward. The shield artifact guarding him suddenly started glowing brightly, its defensive strength seemingly increasing another level. At the same time, the saber in his hand buzzed violently, while even Luigi's aura began to inflate and grow chaotic. Self-destruct. Han Lung's cry of shock sounded from the heaven-shaking light sword, a hint of fear apparent in his voice. Not all artifacts in this world could self-destruct, but those that could would release massive amounts of destruction when they did. However, if someone really did this, not to mention that he would lose the artifact, the owner of the artifact would definitely suffer severe backlash. The longsword artifact in Luigi's hand was a Dao Source-grade low-rank artifact, and the force of its self-destruction would definitely not be low, so Han Len didn't dare to take it head-on. Don't even think about it. Han Lung's face distorted as he hid inside the moonlight sword, pressing his attack even harder, seemingly wanting to take Luigi's life before the artifact could self-destruct. A dazzling brilliance suddenly covered the entire world as a deafening thunderclap shook heaven and earth. The surrounding world energy fluctuated while even the local world principles became disordered. A black hole had suddenly appeared in Luigi's location. The power of that artifact's self-destruct had actually shattered space, proof of how terrifying the explosion was. An endless suction force appeared from this tear in space, swallowing everything around it before it fiercely constricted and disappeared under the restorative power of the local world principles. Many of the silver moons in the sky had gone dim as Han Lung's final blow had seemingly drained most of the Heavenly Lunar Cycle Grand Array's remaining power. Han Lung's figure was also revealed. At this moment, his face was extremely hideous, his body covered in blood and his left arm twisted in an unnatural angle, a ghastly sight to behold. The clash between the final blows of two second-order Dao Source realms had left Han Lung with serious injuries, and after stabilizing his stance, Han Lung coughed a mouthful of purple-black blood, his fierce aura suddenly dropping noticeably. As for Luigi, his figure was nowhere to be found, and not even a bit of his aura could be felt within a range of 1,000 meters. Only the shield artifact he had summoned was left, tattered and falling from the sky, its surface dull and dim, seemingly having lost its spirituality. This shield-like defensive artifact had been completely destroyed. If even his defensive artifact was destroyed like this, Luigi's end could be imagined. Damn it! Han Lung's face turned ashen as he ground his teeth and cursed, coughing up another mouthful of blood while breathing heavily. Only now did Ning Yuancheng, who had been hiding in the ship and watching the battle, finally react. He got up in a hurry and started forming hand seals while trembling in panic, turning the ship around and trying to escape. Even Luigi had lost to Han Lung, so how could Ning Yuancheng have the guts to stay here any longer? At this moment, all he could think of was getting farther away from here as quickly as possible. But how could Han Lung let him do this? Just as the ship started moving, Han Lung let out a cold snort and braced himself, Then his figure distorted and once again disappeared. Immediately afterward, the remaining dim silver moons glowed brighter for a moment before condensing a large beam of moonlight one last time and firing it straight at the ship. Obviously, Han Lung was planning on killing Ning Yuanchen. Otherwise, once word of this matter got out, Flying St. Palace would not let him go. The moonlight beam was extremely fast and struck the defensive shield of the ship in the next instant. The force of this beam striking the ship wasn't small either, causing Ning Yuancheng on the deck to be thrown off his feet. Salala. Suddenly, a harsh sizzling noise rang out as the powerful corrosive force of the moonlight beam rapidly drained the power of the ship's shield. Han Lung's figure was revealed at this moment, as well as he emerged from the moonlight beam, his sword shining brightly due to the power he borrowed from the array to try to shatter the ship's shield in one blow. Han. Senior Han, do you really need to kill me? You can just let me go. If you do, I swear I won't speak a word about what happened today. Although Ning Yuanchen was a third-order origin king, before the attacking Han Lang, who was like a tiger descending from the mountain, he began begging for mercy before even thinking about counterattacking. Han Lang said nothing, his eyes becoming colder and colder, scaring the life out of Ning Yuancheng, who only begged more pitifully. Suddenly, a cracking sound reached Ning Yuancheng's ears, sounding like the toll of a death knell to him. His face turned pale and his eyes immediately focused on a frightening scene before him. There was now a crack in the defensive shield of the ship, indicating it was on the brink of collapse. Achacha! The cracks rapidly expanded and soon, they formed a spiderweb-like pattern across its entire surface. Finally, with a thunderous shout from Han Lung, the ship's defensive shield shattered, and at the same time, the world of silver moons covering the surrounding area also disappeared. The heavenly lunar cycle array had finally exhausted all of its energy and was automatically dispelled. The moonlight beam too had disappeared, leaving just Han Lang's sword light, which shot straight toward Ning Yuancheng in a fearsome manner. By the time he pulled the long sword in his hand back, Han Lang was already standing not too far away behind Ning Yuancheng. Ning Yuancheng instinctively took a defensive stance, feeling the threat to his life, but that was all he did. A moment later, a little red dot appeared on Ning Yuancheng's forehead before he collapsed onto the deck of the skip with a dull thud. And with no one controlling Flying St. Palace's flying ship, it also fell down from the sky, crashing in a cloud of dust. Not far away, the hidden Yang Kai, who had been watching the battle from the beginning with indifference, narrowed his eyes as he stared towards Han Lung's back. He eliminated so many cultivators from Flying St. Palace alone. He might have relied on the power of the spirit array, but his personal strength should not be underestimated. Even so, after such an intense battle, he must be thoroughly exhausted. He probably can't even display half of his usual strength right now. Yang Kai felt that if he made a move now, he would have a 90% chance of succeeding. This was a typical example of a fisherman reaping the benefits of a fight between snipe and clam. However, Yang Kai was still wary that Han Lung had some final card left in his hand, like how Luigi self-destructed his own artifact just now. If that was the case, he would have to pay a big price if wanted to win. While Yang Kai was preoccupied with his thoughts, Han Lung's figure had already flown up from the ship. He seemed to have searched Ning Yuancheng's corpse and was now holding a space ring in his hand. Not long after, a round bowl appeared in his palm with a flash of light. Examining it for a moment, Han Lung wore a satisfied smile before storing the bowl back into the space ring. Seeing this, Yang Kai immediately understood that the purpose of Han Lung's trip was the same as his own. It was all for Lu Yen, who was sealed in that bowl. But even after having dealt with everything, Han Lung still didn't immediately leave. Rather, he raised his eyes, looked squarely in Yang Kai's direction, and said in a cold voice, "Kid, you've been watching for quite some time now. Haven't you seen enough?" Yang Kai furrowed his brow and didn't immediately show himself. Seeing this, Han Lung coldly smiled and continued, "What's wrong? Does this Han have to invite you to come out personally?" As he spoke, the long sword in his hand gleamed slightly. Yang Kai looked a little astonished, knowing the other party wasn't deliberately acting mysterious and really knew he was here. With there being no point in continuing to hide, Xianxia dispersed his nihility secret technique and revealed himself. Hanling raised his brow and praised liberally. What a marvelous concealment technique! Fascinating! Xianxia, looking at him, pursed his lips into a smile and said, Senior Han, you flatter me. No matter how marvelous my concealment technique is, didn't you still see through it? What I don't understand is how Senior Han managed this. It seems that you are very confident in your technique. Hanling swept his eyes over Xianxia, relaxing completely after noticing he was just a third-order origin king and nonchalantly saying, Truthfully, I am likely unable to see through your technique with just my ability, but since you were inside the heavenly lunar cycle grand array, Xianxia was struck with realization and nodded. So, that's how it is. Hanling, looking at Xianxia, indifferently asked, Kid, why are you hiding here? You wouldn't be thinking of being the oriole stalking the mantis hunting the cicada, would you? Xianxia chuckled and said without hesitation, I did have this idea, but if Senior Han can give me that bowl, I will leave immediately. So, you want that fire attribute artifact spirit? Hanling's face sank as if he had thought of something before nodding. So you were the other one bidding at the auction. Indeed. Unfortunately, my finances are lacking and I could only choose this method instead. Do you think you can snatch something from this Han's grasp? Do you not know how to write death? Hanling smiled in disdain. Since I dare to come here, I naturally have confidence in my ability. What's more, Senior Han has just fought an intense battle and is completely exhausted. It would not be a wise decision to become my enemy at this moment. Listening to Xianxia talk in such a leisurely manner, Hanling's eyes twitched slightly. What right does a third-order origin king have to dare act so presumptuous in front of me? But what he said also makes sense. Since he dares to come, he must be depending on something, and whatever he is depending on is definitely making him unafraid of me. Considering all this, Hanling's mood couldn't help but sink. He didn't want to fight another battle at this point, as although the injuries he had suffered weren't fatal, they weren't light either. More importantly though, he did not have much source chi left. Good. It's been a long time since someone dared to be so presumptuous in front of this Han. Kid, I'll remember this, and I hope you don't die young. Hanling looked at Xianxia for a moment before he suddenly started speaking with a sneer. Xianxia smiled lightly and replied, Senior Han, it would also not be a wise decision to try to flee as. Unfortunately for you, I'm quite good at tracking others. You won't be able to escape from me. Saying so, space force pulsed from Xianxia's figure as it disappeared from its place. In the next moment, he appeared on the opposite side of Hanling, as if he had been standing there all along. Even someone as experienced and knowledgeable as Hanling couldn't help but be taken aback at this moment, calling out in shock, What kind of movement skill was that? The speed of his mysterious movement skill is indeed better than mine. It seems he's not idly boasting about his speed and tracking skills. If this kid used this movement skill to continuously attack and harass me, I'll never be able to rest and recover. Hanling's face blackened at once. Xianxia's grin grew wider, but just as he was about to apply more pressure, his eyes widened in shock as he stared behind Hanling's back with a look of pure disbelief and shouted, Behind you! Hanling couldn't help but sneer. You dare to play such paltry tricks before this Han. He thought that Xianxia was deliberately trying to divert his attention and then sneak attack him. This kind of trick was so naive that even a child wouldn't be fooled by it, so how could a battle-hardened veteran cultivator? If he really believed Xianxia and looked behind himself, Hanling was sure he would be attacked by Xianxia the next moment. But as soon as he said this, a sense of crisis struck him. There really seemed to be some strange movements behind him. Hanling was struck with panic and quickly mobilized his defensive source chi while at the same time kicking the air to dodge. But he had reacted too late. Behind him, an extremely sharp, cyan-colored spike appeared and shot out towards his back. The speed of the spike was extremely fast, so fast that it seemed to split space apart as it advanced. Hanling's defensive source chi couldn't stop the spike at all, and it swiftly pierced right through him, leaving a small puncture wound on his forehead. The fact that the spike pierced through his entire head proved how powerful this blow was. Han Lung was quite strong though, so he didn't die immediately even after suffering this fatal injury. Turning around to see who had attacked him though, he couldn't help calling out in alarm, "How is this possible? That's impossible." He believed that it was Liu Yizhi, who had sneak attacked him from the back. After all, Liu Yizhi had disappeared after the final blow, and judging from that, Liu Yizhi was vaporized, or had seized the opportunity to hide. After Han Lung was sneak attacked, he thought that Liu Yizhi had simply been hiding because of this. But when he saw one who performed the sneak attack, only then did he realize that he couldn't have been more wrong. The sneak attacker standing behind him and looking at him with a sly smile wasn't Liu Yizhi, but Ning Yuancheng, the one he had killed with his own hands. He found this scene completely unbelievable. Ning Yuancheng was only a third-order origin king, and after stabbing him with his sword, Han Lung had searched Ning Yuancheng's corpse. So Han Lung was certain the other party was dead. How could the dead rise? But when Han Lung noticed certain changes in Ning Yuancheng's appearance, he was struck with realization and muttered to himself, "So it's like that." After having spoken these words, his head slumped to one side as he stopped breathing. At the same time, the nearby Yang Kais felt his skin crawl, and his fists clenched as he called out in alarm, "Wood Spirit!" From where he stood, he could almost clearly see what just happened. While he was talking to Han Lung, Ning Yuancheng, who was supposedly dead, strangely and silently stood up, opened his mouth, and shot a green wooden thorn from it, which then pierced through Han Lung's head. The reason why Han Lung was so easily killed was partly due to his exhausted state and partly because of Yang Kai's warning. Han Lung mistakenly thought that Yang Kai was setting a trap for him, so he never thought that there was really fatal danger lurking behind him, and by the time he did notice, it was already too late. How could a dead cultivator spit out a green wooden thorn? Yang Kai had seen something similar inside the five-colored treasure pagoda, as well as in Maplewood City, so he recognized it at a glance. Surprisingly, it was the ancient wood spirit that had caused chaos in Maplewood City before. On the day when the wood spirit disaster struck Maplewood City, 6 Emperor Realm Masters had personally taken action, and because of this, thousands of cultivators had lost their lives in Maplewood City. After the turmoil, the City Lord's mansion had issued a statement saying the wood spirit disaster had been dealt with, making everyone feel at ease. But now it seemed that this was just a method the City Lord's mansion had used to calm the public, while the wood spirit was not completely wiped out and had instead found a way to infect some cultivators. It was just that this wood spirit had concealed itself extremely well, not only escaping the notice of those 6 emperors, but even Ning Yuancheng and Liu Yizhi, who had been guarding him closely. If it weren't for Ning Yuancheng's sudden death this time, the wood spirit seed definitely would not have been exposed. If the host died, the wood spirit seed would naturally not have any place to hide. Everything was just a coincidence. Yang Kai had already figured everything out in a blink of the eye, but his heart couldn't help sinking as he did. During those few days in Maplewood City, he had also participated in the hunt for wood spirit clones and deeply understood how difficult it was to deal with these things. Moreover, at that time, he had teamed up with a dozen or even several dozen cultivators, but many had still been wounded during those fights. Now, he had to deal with one all alone. While various thoughts were running through Yang Kai's mind, a weird gurgling noise could be heard coming from Ning Yuancheng, and along with this noise, Han Lung's body quickly started shriveling up. This was one of the wood spirit's innate abilities, draining the vitality of cultivators to strengthen itself. Originally, Ning Yuancheng was emitting the aura of a third-order origin king, but as he continued to swallow Han Lang's essence, his aura rapidly climbed and soon reached the peak of the third-order origin king realm, touching upon the Tao source realm. Yang Kai's pupils couldn't help but shrink as he knew it would be too late if he didn't take action now. Shouting furiously, "Don't even think about it!" As he spoke, a flame sword suddenly appeared in his hand, as he channeled his fire sword chi from his 5 elements indestructible sword chi. His figure distorted as he used the space force and appeared before Ning Yuancheng, immediately swinging down his sword hard. With a deafening explosion, the air grew extremely hot. The wood spirit was a wood attribute creature, so fire attribute energy was its nemesis. This was what Mo Xiaoqi had told Yang Kai once, and Yang Kai had confirmed this multiple times while hunting down wood spirit clones in Maplewood City. Against wood spirit clones, fire attribute energy was more effective than Space Force. This attack went straight at Ning Yuancheng's head, and if it hit its target, it would definitely split Ning Yuancheng in two. But how could the wood spirit clone let Yang Kai succeed so easily? Ning Yuancheng's mouth was still wide open as he constantly devoured the vitality via the green spike pierced through Han Ling's head. But as the flame sword descended upon him, his eyes flashed a bright gleam and he swung his arms out. The two arms distorted and crackled as they transformed into two thick and long vines, one sweeping towards Yang Kai's waist while the other defended against the flame sword. Yuchichi. The fire sword chi could only leave a deep cut on one of the vines, unable to slice through it completely, but this still drew a cry of pain from Ning Yuancheng. Simultaneously, the other vine was already upon Yang Kai. Yang Kai's pupils shrank as he didn't dare to remain in place, immediately retreating. The vine only struck air. The cut left by Yang Kai's flame sword on the other vine burned brightly for a moment, but soon a burst of green light erupted and the flames were extinguished, restoring the vine to its original state instantly. How is that possible? Yang Kai called out in shock as he stabilized his footing. He had killed quite a few wood spirit clones in Maplewood City, and although the vitality of these wood spirit clones was extremely tenacious and they were quite difficult to kill, Yang Kai had never encountered one with such astonishing restorative ability. Yang Kai hadn't held back any of his strength in his last attack, so from his previous experiences, he was certain the wound he inflicted would have been serious and difficult to repair. But to his shock and dismay, the wood spirit clone was practically uninjured. Yang Kai couldn't help but become vigilant seeing this and vaguely felt that the wood spirit clone in front of him was somehow different. Right when Yang Kai's attack ended in vain, Han Ling's corpse was sucked dry and Ning Yuancheng finally withdrew the wooden spike back into his mouth, a look of contentment appearing on his twisted face. First Order Dao Source Realm. Yang Kai's expression turned cold as he sensed the aura emanating from Ning Yuancheng. On the opposite side, Ning Yuancheng glared at Yang Kai with hatred, as if blaming Yang Kai for ruining his good deed. Ning Yuancheng's figure shook as the clothes on his body were ripped into pieces and green vines suddenly exploded from his figure, the tips of these vines seemingly as sharp as swords. In an instant, Ning Yuancheng's entire figure had changed greatly. He couldn't even be described as humanoid anymore. Now he was just a wood spirit clone, nothing more. Only on the upper part of the trunk did some traces of Ning Yuancheng's facial features remain, while the rest of his figure was simply countless dancing vines. Some of the vines stabbed toward Yang Kai like whips falling from the heavens, while other vines swept towards the dead bodies of the flying St. Palace disciples, piercing them and devouring their physical essence, a terrifying and imposing sight to behold. Immediately, slurping noises could be heard coming from all around as the corpses of the many fallen cultivators started withering at a speed visible to the naked eye. In your dreams. Yang Kai's face turned fierce at the sight of this as he hurriedly gathered fire sword chi into his hands and slashed outwards. Chi 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 chi. Scorching hot fire sword chi blades flew through the air and pierced the corpses of the flying St. Palace disciples, the flame burning their corpses into ashes in a flash. A Dao Source Realm with spirit clone was already difficult enough to deal with, so how could Yang Kai possibly give it an opportunity to strengthen itself further? When the wood spirit clone saw this, it turned around and faced Yang Kai. On its trunk, Ning Yuancheng's face twisted, letting out a piercing scream as if it was extremely angry. Immediately, its body shook as countless roots shot into the ground and dug in. Immediately after, the wood spirit clone shook as countless vines madly started attacking Yang Kai, like arrows raining down from the sky. Yang Kai grit his teeth as he used his space force to dodge this attack and released his monster insect queen and blue flame thunder wolf with a wave of his hand. Kill! Yang Kai fiercely ordered as he appeared before the wood spirit in a flash and swung his flame sword again, bringing a billowing wave of heat down upon the wood spirit. At the same time, the monster insect queen swung its blue and purple twin swords in a cross shape while spreading out an icy cold domain filled with gently falling snowflakes. Clear sky snowfall. The snowflakes danced through the air as they slowly fell, but each one of them was incomparably sharp. As these tiny flakes fell on the vines of the wood spirit, small wounds started to appear on its vines, drawing green blood from it while their frigid ice attribute energy seeped into the wounds, greatly hindering the vine's healing ability. The monster insect queen took this opportunity approach while brandishing its swords to unleash a storm of slashes towards the wood spirit, coordinating its assault with Xianxia's movements. The blue flame thunder wolf, on the other hand, gained some distance and opened its jaws to fire a barrage of blue flame balls at the wood spirit, setting off a series of loud explosions everywhere. In a flash, Xianxia and the two blood beasts had suppressed the wood spirit clone to the point that it couldn't mount any counterattack and was only able to passively defend itself. This scene wasn't surprising. Even though this wood spirit clone had advanced to the first-order Dao source realm after devouring Han Lung's physical essence, the monster insect queen could display strength equal to a second-order Dao source realm master, while the blue flame thunder wolf wasn't weak either and used fire attribute energy attacks, which was the bane of the wood spirit. Coupled with Xianxia, it would be strange if the wood spirit clone wasn't suppressed. Under the cooperation of one man and two blood beasts, the countless vines of the wood spirit were cut to pieces rapidly, scattering vines and green blood across the ground that continued to wriggle, as if they were still alive. However, after these cut-off vines bled out all their green blood, they swiftly shriveled up and withered into dust that was swept away by the wind. The wood spirit screamed again and again, pushing its own energy in anger and regrowing its vines constantly, making it seem like a futile effort to even try to kill it. Xianxia couldn't help but be in awe a little at the sight of this. He always felt that this wood spirit clone was a little different from the ones he had dealt with before, and because it was seemingly more difficult to handle, he became more vigilant. Wrapping his fire sword chi around his entire body, Xianxia made sure the wood spirit didn't have a chance to infect him as well. A quarter of an hour later, the fight raged on as Xianxia and the two blood beasts seemed to have the upper hand, but still failed to give any fatal injuries to the wood spirit, locking the two sides in a kind of stalemate. Suddenly, the blue flame thunder wolf that had been using its fire attribute attacks to suppress the wood spirit seemed suddenly lose strength and paused its barrage. Chi 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 chi. With piercing noises, roots suddenly sprang out from below ground and bound the blue flame thunder wolf. These roots were naturally the ones the wood spirit had stuck into the soil before. The blue flame thunder wolf whimpered as it struggled hard but was unable to free itself. Taking advantage of this opportunity, a vine stabbed straight into the blue flame thunder wolf, and in the next instant, a familiar sucking sound rang out as the vine began to devour the physical essence of the blue flame thunder wolf. The blue flame thunder wolf was originally an 11th order monster beast, possessing strength on part with a first-order Dao source realm cultivator, and even after being killed and refined into a blood beast, its physical essence had not been lost. Rather, its vitality had become stronger because it was being supported by Xianxia's golden blood thread. Swallowing the blue flame thunder wolf's vitality rapidly made up for the damage the wood spirit had suffered until now, and a clear look of joy and surprise filled the distorted facial features on its trunk. Xianxia's heart sank when he saw this and immediately shouted, "Return!" With his shout, the blue flame thunder wolf that had been tied down by the roots shook and turned back into a golden blood thread that rapidly flew over to Xianxia. As Xianxia secretly checked its condition, his face immediately turned ugly when he realized that about 1/3 of the vitality in this golden blood thread had disappeared in that short moment. In other words, 1/3 of the blue flame thunder wolf's vitality had been devoured. If he wanted to supplement it, Xianxia would have to use his own golden blood. On the other side, the wood spirit became enraged after failing to swallow the blue flame thunder wolf. It no longer cared about Xianxia and instead turned its attention to the monster insect queen. Having gained huge benefits after swallowing the blue flame thunder wolf's vitality just now, it naturally wanted to repeat its trick. The ground under the monster insect queen suddenly split as untold roots flew out like snakes, trying to trap the monster insect queen. But how could it be that easy to tie down the monster insect queen? The blue and purple dual swords glowed faintly as bitter cold sword chi waves flew out in all directions. Ice principles swirled through the air around the monster insect queen's body, greatly reducing the speed of these roots, resulting in them not only failing to trap the monster insect queen but also suffering serious damage in the process. Yang Kai regained his confidence at the sight of this. If the two blood beasts couldn't be used in this battle, it would definitely become much harder for him. But now it seemed that the monster insect queen's performance was much better than Yang Kai had expected. The monster insect queen was born from the fusion of a sentient sword intent and a blood beast, so the strength it could unleash in combat was far superior to the blue flame thunder wolves. Yang Kai was about to charge in again, teaming up with the monster insect queen to besiege the wood spirit, when his brow suddenly rose as he sensed a kind of anxious call. This summon came from the sealed Lu Yen. Even though Lu Yen was sealed inside that strange bowl, she seemed to have sensed the battle outside and was now stimulating the soul mark Yang Kai had left in her divine sense many decades ago. Startled for a moment, Yang Kai quickly slapped his forehead as he scolded himself for being an idiot. He had only been thinking of teaming up with his two blood beasts to fight just now and had forgotten about Lu Yan's existence. Lu Yan was a fire attribute artifact spirit, a pure amalgamation of fire attribute energy, so even if her cultivation wasn't as high as the two blood beasts, her role in this particular battle might be even stronger than them. As long as Lu Yan came out, what would there be to fear about a trivial wood spirit? Thinking so, Yang Kai immediately focused his gaze on Han Leng's corpse, which lay near the wood spirit. He gave an order to the monster insect queen and had it suppress the wood spirit on its own while Yang Kai directly soared over to Han Leng's corpse, reached down and picked up the two space rings. Of the two space rings, one belonged to Han Leng and the other to Ning Yuancheng. The round bowl in which Lu Yen was sealed was stored in the latter's space ring. After having acquired them, Yang Kai immediately withdrew. Right at that moment, the wood spirit seemed to notice Yang Kai's movements and sent out countless vine whips at him, as well as a faint streak of green light which struck his body and disappearing in a flash. Yang Kai was shocked as he quickly blocked the attacking vines while withdrawing, a confused look appearing on his face once he reached a safe distance. He had clearly seen that faint beam shooting out from the wood spirit, but he couldn't see where it went. He quickly scanned his own body with his divine sense, but he couldn't find anything strange, causing his expression to turn unsightly. He carefully scanned himself again, but was still unable to find anything. Short on time, though, Yang Kai grit his teeth and ignored this anomaly temporarily and took out the bowl sealing Lu Yen from Ning Yuancheng's space ring. As he poured his divine sense into the bowl, he immediately sensed Lu Yen. "Master!" Lu Yan's voice reached him. "It's good to see you again. I knew you wouldn't abandon me." Yang Kai chuckled and said, "Of course I wouldn't abandon you, but now isn't the time to reminisce about. I'll find a way to unlock this seal quickly, as there's an enemy here I need your help dealing with." And, after replying, there were no other movements from Lu Yan's side. Yang Kai flew to the distance and meticulously checked the seals on the round bowl. This bowl was clearly a special kind of sealing artifact, one that wasn't of much other use or of great value. It was mainly used to seal energy bodies like Lu Yan's, and after being trapped inside, Lu Yen clearly couldn't unlock the barrier. Fortunately, it seemed that unlocking these seals from the outside was relatively straightforward. As Yang Kai's divine sense was far stronger than an ordinary Origin King's, it only took the time it takes to finish a cup of tea for him to find some clues. Pouring his divine sense into the bowl, Yang Kai swiftly unlocked one seal after another. When the last seal broke, Lu Yan's joyous shout came from the bowl. "I'm free!" Lu Yan swiftly turned into a fiery beam of light and flew out of the bowl with a loud, joyous cry. With her advent, the temperature in the surrounding air rose dramatically. Lu Yan spread her wings and her enormous body seemed to cover half of the sky, her eyes burning with intense flames as she stared down towards the wood spirit which was engaged in battle with the monster insect queen. Immediately, a sharp, crisp cry escaped from her mouth as she swooped down like a meteor falling from the sky. At this moment, the wood spirit was locked in combat with the monster insect queen. Despite being a minor realm higher in cultivation, and having mastered ice principles, the monster insect queen was barely holding her ground against the wood spirit. Without Yang Kai's help, she was now locked into a stalemate. This made it quite clear just how strong the wood spirit was. When Lu Yen, wrapped in her intense flames, swooped down from the sky, however, the hideous face on the wood spirit's trunk finally showed a look of fear and panic. It had not even shown this kind of look when it was up against Yang Kai and two blood beasts. Countless vines shot straight out at the oncoming Lu Yen from the ground, each one like a powerful spear throw with extraordinary strength. But Lu Yen didn't care to pay these vines any mind, simply opening her beak and spewing out a jet of crimson flames wrapped in arcs of purple lightning. Almost all of the vines were reduced to ashes by its scorching flames, while the few that made it through simply passed through Lu Yan's body without causing any damage to her. It could be said that she was the ultimate nemesis for this wood spirit. All the wood spirit's abilities had no effect on her, while her abilities greatly restrained it. Not only that, the power of thunder and lightning mastered by Lu Yen traveled back along the wood spirit's vines, causing it to freeze up in shock. Most of Lu Yan's flames were refined by devouring the sun's true essence, while her lightning came from the sentient heavenly thunder fire she had devoured in the past. In terms of ferocity of flames, while Lu Yan's might not be comparable to the Luanfeng's world-extinguishing black flame, it was definitely quite extraordinary. How could wood spirit resist? After Lu Yan's body of flame passed through the wood spirit, more than half of its vines were burned to coke and its originally hideous and distorted face filled with panic. It didn't dare to remain and immediately uprooted itself, using its roots like tentacles as it scampered across the ground towards the distance. It had actually decided to flee.